Good evening and welcome to the regular December 12th, 2017 City Council meeting. Before we begin the meeting, let me review the procedures for the meeting. The audience is reminded that this is a business meeting of the City Council, therefore clapping, cheering, and outbursts are not permitted. Speakers must complete a request to speak form located at the entrance to the council chamber. Submit your completed form to either the city clerk or the sergeant at arms. When your name has been called, use the microphone at the lectern on the audience's right and state your name and address. If you do not wish to publicly state your street address, you may state only your city or unincorporated Brevard County. Speak to City Council as a body. Do not address the mayor and City Council members individually. Be mindful of the timer at the front of the room and wrap up your comments before your speaking time ends. The following time limits will generally apply. Speaking times may be varied by the mayor with the approval of City Council. Public comments, most agenda items, and the consent agenda up to 3 minutes. Items designated as a public hearing and petitions, remonstrances, and communications up to 5 minutes. An applicant, representative, or person who has legal standing to support or oppose a quasi-judicial matter will be permitted enough time as reasonably determined by the City Council to create a record before the City Council. These matters generally include site plan, plat, zoning of property, conditional use, variance, building-related permit or appeal, abandon and vacate requests, annexation, and other applications of law to specific properties. Thank you for joining us this evening, and we'll begin the invocation with our city attorney, Allison Dolly. And if you wish to participate in the invocation, please stand.
Thank you, Lord, for this beautiful day. I praise you as Almighty and give you all the glory. I ask that you would guard the lives of our law enforcement officers and firefighters as they seek to guard the lives of others. I ask for wisdom and the gift of good counsel. Remain in our hearts, Lord. Help us to humble ourselves that you would guide us in our service to our community. Help us to let our light shine before others to lead on a path of righteousness for peace in our community and beyond. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Ms. Dolly. And please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Mr. McEwen.
Councilmember Debbie Thomas.
Present.
Councilmember Alpery. Here. Councilmember Lopez.
Here.
Councilmember Tim Thomas.
Here.
Councilmember Moore.
Present.
Vice Mayor Yvonne Minus.
Here.
Mayor Meehan.
Thank you. Next is the proclamations and presentations, and I have one for my husband, Dennis Meehan, for 40-plus years of service on the Beautification and Environmental Advisory Committee. Please join me up front. This is the only time I get to tell him what to do.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. There we go. All right, we're in business. Okay. All right, so I want to include our daughter Heather Meehan and her husband Gavin up here as I give him
The broom.
Well, you can do that too. Okay, so Dennis, this is presented to you from the Mayor and City Council in recognition of your dedicated volunteer service from January 1977. Was I born then? Okay. Yeah. To October 2017. So congratulations, Dennis. Well deserved. Did you want to say a few words?
Sure.
Okay.
There's one person that I really need to thank for staying on that committee that long. It wasn't my wife. It was a city employee by the name of Barbara Sullivan, who my brothers and I had bought a couple pieces of property downtown. And we bought our third piece of property. It had some frontage on a road. All of them fronted on a road, but this one had some area to landscape. And so I went to the city to get a permit, and she said, well, you're going to have to landscape that. And I said, landscape it? What is landscaping? She said, well, you got to put some shrubs in and a tree and grass. And, oh, why do I have to do that? Because every other time I went over there, they just give you a permit. You know, you told them what we're going to do, and they give you a permit. But I was so encouraged by her to see what she was doing for the city of Melbourne that I went on this committee, and I've stayed on it that long. So thanks to Barbara Sullivan and all the other people that have worked on that committee through the years, to city people to help it run efficiently. Thank you.
And also you have a gift certificate. All right, all right. Bumper chairs. All right, and I also would like to recognize the Boy Scouts, Troop 373, for being here. Thank you for being here. All right. You want to stand up?
Yeah.
Stand up.
So we can see who you are. Yeah, there you go. Thank you for being here. Next is item number 5, approval of minutes for November 28th, 2017, regular meeting. Council, what is your pleasure?
Mayor,
Ms. Lopez.
so move.
Second. I have a motion to approve the minutes by Ms. Lopez, second by Ms. Moore. Discussion?
Yes, Mayor.
Yeah, Mr.
Yeah,
Elfrey.
I'm going to approve the minutes, but there's some issues that I'm going to address at the end of the meeting regarding the minutes.
Okay,
But I will approve them at this time.
okay.
Mayor?
Ms. Lopez.
Yes. I would like to see, with council's approval, if we can address item number 19 before we address item number 18 today?
Okay, so you want to move that up under where? After unfinished business?
Before 18. I want to move 19.
Okay,
So just replace 19 before 18.
okay, so you're going to move that
So 19 will
after,
be 18 then.
no, we don't want to change the numbers,
Okay, so
but,
then I
all
thought
right,
it
so
would
we're
be
going to move it
easier.
ahead of 18 then, right?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Mr. McEwen, I don't think we need a motion. The mayor has the authority to move it.
Yes, you just need to vote on the motion to approve the minutes.
Okay,
But with council consensus.
okay. So, all right, so we have a motion and a second on the approval of the minutes of November 28th. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and I vote aye, and the motion passes. Okay, so what we'll do is, like Ms. Lopez wanted to move up the item before 18. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next is city manager's report. Mr. McNeish, you're on.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I don't have anything to add tonight.
All right. Any questions for Mr. McNeish? Seeing none. All right. Next is public comments. Do I have any sign-up sheets? All right, thank you. All right, first is Dr. Stephanie Ely.
I have some handouts.
Okay, you have something, something to pass out? Okay. Just state your name and city.
Stephanie Ely, City of West Melbourne.
Okay.
2 weeks ago, a number of patently false statements were made concerning Honor America. These were just the latest in a series of falsehoods that have been presented to this City Council concerning our organization. As a member of the Executive Committee and the Board of Directors of Honor America, I have attended all but one board meeting for the last 5 years. Ms. Moore stated last meeting that all of the current problems with Honor America were the result of previous presidents. While it is true that our former executive director was initially employed by past President George Galetko, neither George or myself were in office when the alleged financial misdealings occurred. George left office in 2012, and my term of office ended in 2014. The alleged embezzlement of over $8,500 took place in 2015 under the leadership of Ms. Moore. For any who are interested, I have a copy of the letter she sent requesting that the misappropriated funds be returned to Honor America. The alleged roofing fraud took place in 2015 under Ms. Moore's presidency. Honor America bylaws prescribe that the treasurer be solely appointed by the president. During 2015, members of the board of directors continually asked for month-to-month financial statements, which were never provided. Ms. Moore made no attempt to remove the president and replace him with someone who would provide accurate financial statements. To imply that Mr. Galetko or I are responsible for the alleged financial mismanagement is ludicrous. Kendall Moore is not the attorney of record for Honor America. The board of directors has not met since August of this year, and that decision would have to be approved by the board, as Kendall well knows. In February of this year, our executive director filed an extension with the state of Florida for Honor America to file its 990 form with the state to preserve its not-for-profit status. Because the financial statements have not been reconciled for late 2015 or 2016, the 990 form could not be completed by our accountants. At the July Board of Directors meeting, Celeste Henry, our executive secretary, reminded President Betty Moore, the board, and the executive director that the deadline for sending in the 990 was approaching on August 8th. Ms. Moore informed the board that our accountant was working on the 990 and that everything was being taken care of. Well, everything was not taken care of. None of the financial documents for 2015 or 2016 were given to our accountant until after August 8th. The state of Florida rescinded Honor America's not-for-profit status in August of 2017. Ms. Moore still has not contacted Honor America's accountant or made any attempt to appoint a treasurer to complete the financial reconciliations. There are no reconciled financial statements for late 2015, 2016, or now 2017. In order to reinstate, these must be completed. There are a handful of current Honor America board members that want to see the museum restored, but we have met with hostility and resistance from Ms. Moore and those she recruited to the board. Be assured that we will not give up our efforts to preserve Honor America, a historic treasure to the city of Melbourne. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Ely. Next is Mr. Eric Ellebrock. You put an E, Eric. Good thing I know your name.
My apologies, ma'am. I'll have to start using my middle name. See, man, I can't believe what happens. I missed a couple meetings, and all of a sudden, secret deals and all these accusations, and I'm clueless. Wow, and that's what I get for missing one meeting after 30 some odd years of, your husband started on the beautification board 3 years before I attended my first council meeting. So, not going to talk about the Boy Scouts real quick. I would like to consider the Melbourne City Council to consider a non-binding resolution proclaiming Crown Heights, New York, the capital of Israel. I think that would possibly get rid of some of the contentions that our president has caused. I don't get into the religious beliefs a lot, but I, like most people, I believe that eventually we'll be called to account for our behavior or our treatment to our fellow man in front of God. And I think part of that accounting will be how we had dealt in our life with the lower species that God put here and gave us dominion over. By that, I mean the animals and, the creatures that are displaced by development. And I want to bring that up to you because, you know, we all face a final judgment. And I want to bring that my belief up to you that we'll have to answer for our treatment of the lower species, the treatment of the animals. Pets, dogs, however you want to put it. I think we'll be called to that. And I want to bring that point up to you in view of the fact that the first part of the agenda is nothing but development issues and land issues. So, and also, of course, the land down from the dam, the signs went up. You know, it's going to be turned into another housing project. And that's about the only free open space for the animals along the river anymore now. You know, the rest of it's people's yards. A couple other things I would like to point out. Real quick, I saw the city, when Chief Carey was police chief, I distinctly remember him coming in front of the city council to request money to buff up and refurbish the SWAT van. We had a diesel-powered big van that we used for SWAT, and he got the money, and I recently saw that van on the street. It's been sold to civilian control. The man was too embarrassed to tell me how much he paid for it. He says, I feel like I committed theft, and the van had only 30,000 miles on it. 30,000 miles, and it had all kinds of and it was a diesel. You know, in view of our consciousness for environmental issues and all that, maybe we can convert that van to burn French fry oils, but then the seagulls will be following it. But the point I'm trying to make here is that maybe we need to tighten up on our getting all these new vehicles to the ones we have, and we need to look closer at some of the surplus deals we make. Okay, because I think that van could have proved, 30,000 miles on a diesel van, that's nothing, especially when it's been repaired. And, it's now in civilian. Boy, I wish I would have got a hold of that van. Imagine me in an repaired van. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hellebrock. All right, I'll close the public hearing, and we'll bring it back to unfinished business. Item number 8, ordinance number 2017-63. Highline Apartments, LLC, Miss Allison Dolly.
Yes, ma'am. An ordinance of the City of Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, relating to the vacation of a temporary parking easement created as a condition of ordinance number 2015-48, located south of the intersection of New Haven Avenue and Livingston Street and west of Grant Place, 635 East New Haven Avenue, as shown on the plat of Hallwood Place, as recorded in Plat Book 2, page 33A, Public Records of Brevard County, Florida, making findings, providing for a condition of approval, providing an effective date, and providing an adoption schedule.
Thank you, Ms. Dolly. This is under engineering, so you are going to be...
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. This is second reading. There's no additional information to provide from first, and staff recommends approval. We're happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Any questions for Ms. Lewis? All right. Seeing none, this is quasi-judicial. Do we have any sign-up sheets? No sign-up sheets. This is a public hearing. Do I have any sign-up for public hearing? No. I'll close the public hearing. Bring it back to council. What is your pleasure?
Mayor,
Vice Mayor Minus.
I move for approval of ordinance number 2017-63.
Second. I have a motion for approval of ordinance number 2017-63 by Vice Mayor Minus, second by Ms. Moore. Discussion? Seeing none, this is second reading, and it's going to require a roll call vote.
Councilmember Debbie Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Alfrey.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Tim Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Von Minus.
Aye.
Mayor Meehan.
And I vote aye, and the motion passes. Item number 9 is ordinance number 2017-57, ordinance number 2017-58, ordinance number 2017-59 with Reba Floyd and Samuel Harborough properties. Miss Allison Dolly.
Yes, ordinance number 2017-57, an ordinance of the City of Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, providing for the annexation of 3.08 plus or minus acres of property located south of Lake in the Woods Drive, east of Stack Boulevard, and west of Babcock Street, 316 and 328 North Lakeside Drive, providing for the extension of the corporate limits and boundaries thereof, providing an effective date, and providing an adoption schedule. Ordinance number 2017-58, an ordinance of the City of Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, relating to comprehensive planning, making findings, amending Appendix D, Chapter 4, Section 4.04 of the City Code, amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan by establishing a low-density residential future land use classification on 3.08 plus or minus acres of property located south of Lake in the Woods Drive, east of Stack Boulevard, and west of Babcock Street, 316 and 328 North Lakeside Drive, providing an effective date and providing an adoption schedule. Ordinance number 2017-59. An ordinance of the City of Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, amending the official zoning map as it relates to the general zoning ordinance number 2005-120 by establishing an REU, Rural Estate Use Zoning District, on 3.08 plus or minus acres of property located south of Lake in the Woods Drive, east of Stack Boulevard, and west of Babcock Street, 316 and 328 North Lakeside Drive, providing an effective date and providing an adoption schedule.
Thank you, Ms. Dolly. This is under Community Development. Ms. Cindy Dittmer.
Yes, staff doesn't have anything further to add under second reading.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Dittmer? Seeing none, this is, disclosures are required. Any disclosures? Seeing none. This is a public hearing. Do I have any sign-up sheets? No, I will close the public hearing and bring it back, and we'll vote separately on the item number 9.
Mayor.
Council, what is your pleasure? Ms. Thomas.
I move for approval of ordinance number 2017-57 based on the findings contained in the Planning and Zoning Board memorandum.
Second.
All right, I have a motion for approval of ordinance number 2017-57 by Ms. Thomas, second by Mr. Elfrey. Discussion? Seeing none, this is second reading. It's going to require a roll call vote.
Councilmember Debbie Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Alfrey.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Tim Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Minus.
Aye.
Mayor Meehan.
And I vote aye, and the motion passes. Item 9B, Council, what is your pleasure?
Mayor.
Ms. Thomas.
Move for approval of ordinance number 2017-58 based on the findings contained in the Planning and Zoning Board memorandum.
Second.
All right, I have a motion for approval of ordinance number 2017-58 by Ms. Thomas, second by Vice Mayor Minus. Discussion? Seeing none. Those in favor, this is going to be a roll call vote.
Councilmember Debbie Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Alfrey.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Tim Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Minus.
Aye.
Mayor Meehan.
And I vote aye, and the motion passes.
Mayor.
Ms. Thomas.
Move for approval of ordinance number 2017-59 based on the findings contained in the Planning and Zoning Board memorandum.
Second.
All right, I have a motion for approval of ordinance number 2017-59 by Ms. Thomas, second by Mr. Elfrey. Okay.
Both of her and I.
Oh, okay. So,
You.
okay. So second by Mr. Elfrey. Discussion? Seeing none, this is going to require a roll call vote.
Councilmember Debbie Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Alfrey.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Tim Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Minus.
Aye.
Mayor Meehan.
And I vote aye, and the motion passes. Item number 10, ordinance number 2017-60, ordinance number 2017-61, and ordinance number 2017-62. Brian Amos. Miss Allison Dolly.
Yes, ordinance number 2017-60, an ordinance of the City of Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, providing for the annexation of 0.26 plus or minus acres of property located on the west side of Easy Street, approximately 400 feet north of Trimble Road, 189 Easy Street, providing for the extension of the corporate limits and boundaries thereof, providing an effective date, and providing an adoption schedule. Ordinance number 2017-61, an ordinance of the City of Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, relating to comprehensive planning, making findings, amending Appendix D, Chapter 4, Section 4.04 of the City Code, amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan by establishing a low-density residential future land use classification on 0.26 plus or minus acres of property located on the west side of Easy Street, approximately 400 feet north of Trimble Road, 189 Easy Street, providing an effective date and providing an adoption schedule. Ordinance number 2017-62, an ordinance of the City of Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, amending the official zoning map as it relates to the general zoning ordinance number 2005-120 by establishing an R1A single-family low-density residential zoning district on 0.26 plus or minus acres of property located on the west side of Easy Street, approximately 400 feet north of Trimble Road, 189 Easy Street, providing an effective date and providing an adoption schedule.
Thank you, Ms. Dolly. This is under Community Development. Ms. Cindy Dittmer.
Yes, nothing further to add on second reading.
All right. Any questions for Ms. Dittmer? Seeing none, this is, disclosures are required. Any disclosures? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. Any sign-up sheets? I will close the public hearing, bring it back to council, and we will vote separately on item 10. Council, what is your pleasure?
Mayor,
Ms. Lopez.
recommend approval of ordinance number 2017-60 based on the findings contained in the Planning and Zoning Board memorandum.
Second.
All right, I have a motion for approval of ordinance number 2017-60 by Ms. Lopez, second by Mr. Thomas. Discussion? Seeing none, this is second reading. It's going to require a roll call vote.
Councilmember Debbie Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Alfrey.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Tim Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Minus.
Aye.
Mayor Meehan.
And I vote aye, and the motion passes. Item 10B, council, what is your pleasure?
Mayor,
Ms. Lopez.
recommend approval of ordinance number 2017-61.
Second.
All right, I have a motion for approval of ordinance number 2017-61 by Ms. Lopez, second by Ms. Thomas. Discussion? Seeing none, this is going to require a roll call vote.
Councilmember Debbie Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Alfrey.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Tim Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Minus.
Aye.
Mayor Meehan.
I vote aye, and the motion passes. Item 10C, council, what is your pleasure?
Mayor,
Ms. Minus, Vice Mayor Minus.
I move for approval of ordinance number 2017-62 based upon the findings contained in the Planning and Zoning Board memorandum.
Second.
All right, I have a motion for approval of ordinance number 2017-62 by Vice Mayor Minus, second by Ms. Moore. Discussion? Seeing none, this is going to require a roll call vote, second reading.
Councilmember Debbie Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Alfrey.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Tim Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Minus.
Aye.
Mayor Meehan.
And I vote aye, and the motion passes. Item number 11, ordinance number 2017-64, the Paramount Condominiums, formerly the Meridian Riverfront Condominiums. Miss Allison Dolly.
An ordinance of the City of Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, providing for the repeal of ordinance number 2011-37, amending the official zoning map as it relates to the general zoning ordinance number 2005-120 by granting a conditional use to allow a building height of 100 feet, an additional 52 feet of height, providing for approval of a substantial change to a previously approved site plan to construct a 100-foot-high 72-unit multiple family condominium development on 2.9 plus or minus acres located on the east side of US Highway 1, north of Hibiscus Boulevard, providing for conditions of approval, providing that the conditional use granted herein may be revoked by City Council if the conditions of approval are not met, providing that the property shall be designated on the official zoning map by the symbol CR3, providing an effective date and providing an adoption schedule.
Thank you, Ms. Dolly. This is under Community Development. Ms. Cindy Dimmer.
Yes, staff does not have anything further to add on second reading.
All right, any questions for Ms. Dimmer? All right, seeing none, this is, disclosures are required. Any disclosures? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. Do I have any sign-up sheets? I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council. What is your pleasure?
Mayor,
Vice Mayor Minus.
I move for approval of ordinance number 2017-64 and SP 2011-03SC based upon the findings and conditions contained in the Planning and Zoning Board memorandum.
Second.
All right, I have a motion for approval of ordinance number 2017-64 with SP 2011-03SC by Vice Mayor Minus, second by Mr. Thomas. Discussion? Seeing none, this is going to require a roll call vote.
Councilmember Debbie Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Alfrey.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Tim Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Minus.
Aye.
Mayor Meehan.
And I vote aye, and the motion passes. Item number 12 is ordinance number 2017-65, the Babcock Street CRA redevelopment plan amendment. This is, Miss Allison Dolly.
An ordinance of the City of Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, relating to the Babcock Street redevelopment plan, making findings, amending Chapter 20 of the City Code entitled Community Planning and Development, amending Section 20-170, duration of agency, amending Section 20-172, Community Redevelopment Plan approved, providing for redevelopment plan modification to include new programs and extending the duration of the agency by 1 year, providing for severability and interpretation, providing an effective date, and providing an adoption schedule.
Thank you, Miss Dolly. This is under community development. Miss Cindy Dittmer.
Yes, staff doesn't have anything further to add on second reading.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Miss Dittmer? Seeing none, this is public hearing. Do I have any sign-up sheets? I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council. What is your pleasure?
Mayor,
Ms. Thomas.
move for approval of ordinance number 2017-65.
Second.
All right, I have a motion for approval of ordinance number 2017-65 by Ms. Thomas, second by Mr. Elfrey. Discussion? Seeing,
Yeah, one thing.
yes.
I think we're all glad that we're gonna get Babcock done with this. I just have to, that's good.
Yes, definitely. All right, so I have a motion and a second, and any further discussion? All right, so I'll just require a roll call vote.
Councilmember Debbie Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Alfrey.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Tim Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Minus.
Aye.
Mayor Meehan.
And I vote aye, and the motion passes. Under new business is the consent agenda, item number 13A through E. Nothing was pulled. So council, what is your pleasure?
Mayor,
Ms. Moore.
I move for the consent agenda items A through E as presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda, items A through E by Ms. Moore, second by Mr. Thomas. Discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and I vote aye, and the motion passes. Item number 15 is council action, and this is under the police department, item 15. Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request to purchase 169 tasers that will replace the current tasers and accessories. Many of the current tasers are expiring. The warranty expires in April of 2018. So we want to replace those units. It'd be more cost effective to have them replaced rather than to send them off for repairs and then be without the tasers for that period of time. Each taser costs $1,400, and the cartridges, this will include cartridges for patrol use and also cartridges for training. The total purchase is $304,000, $514.83. This will be paid over a 5-year period. It's not a loan. It's just a payment. And it's $59,197 in year one, $59,252 in year two, $63,406 in year three, the same in year four, and then $59,252 in year five. This is similar to the budget that we have currently in our current budget for tasers. This is also a sole source purchase from Axum Enterprise, who actually sells taser products, and they're the only one with a product like that right now. The other thing that this taser will allow us to do is it will have an automatic shut off. So if somebody is energized, it will automatically shut off after 5 seconds, and then the officer can re-engage if necessary, but it'll be an automatic shut off, which is safer for everybody.
All right, very good, Chief. Any questions for Chief Gillespie?
Mayor,
Ms. Lopez.
what are you going to do with the replace tasers?
So those will be sold back to Taser for $100 per unit. So that comes has been reduced from the price,
Right.
already reduced.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Council, what is your pleasure?
Mayor,
Miss, I'm sorry. Thank you for reminding me. I'm going to open up the public hearing, and Mr. Eric Allebrock. Sorry, Eric.
Did you actually think I was not going to talk about this? I see the collusion between the van we sold that only had 30,000 miles on it for, a heck of a lot less than what we had in it. $100 a piece? Oh, come on. These units are not covered under FFL laws or any federal things. We need to resell them back to the community and we'll make some more money. Come on. A gently used taser from MPD, I could sell them all day long at the flea market for $300. Okay. Now, I would like the police chief to explain to point out, or the question I have for the police chief is, how many tasers recently have malfunctioned in the line of duty use?
All right, Chief Gillespie?
I'm not aware, you saying in the line of duty, malfunctions?
Yep.
In Melbourne PD?
Yeah.
Or in general?
There are tasers, yeah, our tasers.
Yeah, so I'm not aware of any that have malfunctioned in the course of our duty. I know that we've had an incident where somebody had fired
Accidentally tased themselves.
and tased himself in the hand.
Doesn't surprise me.
And so, yeah, there was an incident like that during the hurricane where the cartridge was wet. And when you touch the cartridge, sometimes that'll come off. So the humidity, there's certain factors that do impact the cartridges.
When I was a boy, one of my most proudest possessions was a 12-gauge shotgun that still had the City of Melbourne property tag on it. But that was back in the day. Because we used to resell our firearms to the local gun dealers, but these things are not covered under any federal, there's no requirement that we do that like there is now with firearms. I just think that even this is a sole source. Do we really shop around, man? Because I've checked out some other tasers that are excellent tasers and also have the automatic shut off. And the one I looked at was $750. So, I don't know if my tastes meet your taste, but, I also think, again, that we are doing something, we're replacing something that, okay, the warranties are running out. And yes, it may be more cost efficient and all that, but we've got some really cool tinkers down, I'm not even going to bring that up, that, we should repair them ourselves, but I'm not even going to trust that one. But let's be honest, tasers are good things to have. You don't have to be a police officer. Okay, they're a handy thing to have around. However, let's be straight up here and all that. Do we have to have the top of the line when it comes to something? I can understand, and that's weapons. I can understand having a good firearm, and for the longest time, we allowed our officers to provide their own firearms. Jeez.
That was a long time
Wow. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mayor?
Thank you, Chief. Yeah, Mr. Elfrey.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment on that. First off, I carried a taser for many years, so I'm very familiar with them. I was certified with it. These tasers are very necessary for the officers. They are top of the line because with the tasers comes a lot of support from Taser International, such as, when you talk about product liability and such, it is sole source. And I tell you right now, they're fundamental in law enforcement now, and they've changed the game. So I'm very happy to support this. Would I like to get more money back for them? Yes, of course, but it is a sole source manufacturer, and they unfortunately have the patent on it. So that's
right.
kind of what I want to put it.
All right, any other discussion? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to council. What is your pleasure on item 15? Ms. Moore.
I recommend approval for the purchase of 169 tasers and related cartridges and accessories for the Police Department, Avon Enterprise, Scottsdale, Arizona. Total cost $304,514.83.
Second.
All right, I have a motion for approval of item number 15, as stated in council's package by Ms. Moore, second by Mr. Elfrey. Discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and I vote aye, and the motion passes. If there's no objection, council will convene as the Old O'Galley Riverfront Community Redevelopment Agency for the following item. Number 16 is council action on this item for the Old O'Galley CRA O'Galley Arts District Main Street Agreement. So this will fall under community development. Ms. Cindy Dittmer.
Yes, this is a request to approve the fiscal year 2017-2018 grant funding agreement between the Old O'Galley Riverfront Community Redevelopment Agency and the O'Galley Arts District, the EGAD Main Street organization, in the amount of $55,000. The agreement follows our fiscal calendar year of October 1 of this year through September 30th of 2018. EGAD Main Street activities augment the CRA's activities, where the CRA is performing the physical and economic development activities within the CRA. The partnership between EGAD and the CRA includes various programs such as our mural program, the facade improvement program, the business wayfinding program, and additionally parking management efforts that go on in the O'Galley area. EGAD's general operating activities implement the programs that are listed within the agreement in Section 2, and those activities help to encourage private investment into the O'Galley area. The proposed agreement does specify that the funding will be used within 3 categories: general operating, seasonal lighting projects, and program activities. Staff has reviewed EGAD's financial reports that do show that their special events and festivals are self-sufficient in the funding for their festivals. And additionally, their EGAD's overall operating and administrative costs exceed the $55,000 grant that's received from the CRA. So their grant is used almost wholly within the administrative and operating area. The O'Galley CRA Advisory Committee did vote unanimously to recommend a continuation of the funding and approval of the 17-18 grant agreement. There is funding available within the downtown O'Galley CRA budget, and staff would recommend approval of the 2017-18 grant funding agreement between the Old O'Galley Riverfront CRA and the O'Galley Arts District Main Street.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dittmer. Any questions for Ms. Dittmer?
Madam Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Thomas.
Yes, Cindy, the general operating and administration cost of $44,000. What does that entail? Because general operating and administration, that's a big overall term. It doesn't mean anything really to me. What specifically is the $44,000? What does that entail?
I would have to let the EGAD organization answer any details about their financials.
Okay. Are they here?
Yes, she's one of the sign-up sheets.
Okay.
So, you have any other questions, Mr. Thomas?
I have some more questions about some of the other categories that are listed with the items of cost, so I can wait till the EGAD person gets up here.
All
Yes,
right.
ma'am.
All right. Any other questions? All right. So I have some sign-up sheets. Miss Lisa Packard.
I was going to say I don't need to speak unless you need me to speak, but it looks like you need me to speak. I'm Lisa Packard, the director of the O'Galley Arts District.
Okay. All right.
And rather than, I'm certainly happy to make a statement, but in the interest of time, I'd rather just jump into any questions that I can answer.
All right. Mr. Thomas?
Yes, ma'am. So the general operating and administration cost of $44,000, that's 90% of the $55,000. So what does that entail?
Mostly my income and related employment taxes around that.
So 90% of this grant is salary.
And taxes and fees around that.
So again, my concern is I want to make sure that every penny of the taxpayers' money that is going into this CRA is being used to eliminate blight. And I'm sorry, paying for a salary, $44,000, 90% of the grant is not eliminating blight, okay? Now, on your program activities consistent with the CRA plan, the $8,500, okay, what does that entail?
May I know what exact sheet you're looking at?
This is page 159 of the packet that was provided to the city council members.
Is there a title to that sheet? is it my profit and loss, my balance statement?
It's the memorandum provided by City Manager Mike McNeese, which starts on 158, and then this is on page 159.
Contract? Oh, I don't have the contract in front of me, so if you want to just state your question again.
Okay, so program activities consistent with the CRA plan, $8,500 of the grant money is in that category. What does that entail?
It's $2,500 goes to our holiday tree lighting, and the balance goes to programs and activities.
Okay, so what kind of programs and activities?
The programs and activities that we operate are either things that come right out of one of our committees, anything that we don't get from CRA, we cover it ourselves, any design features, any street features, any of that kind of thing. Promotions to the extent that everything we do promotion-wise is completely fundraised for. So the balance of that $4,500 or whatever that number is, there are other things that we do besides festivals and events and that sort of thing. So it's printing. I mean, all of that goes towards our operating expenses. Just keeping the office open, that $44,000 is strictly my salary. Then we also have to keep the office open and turn the lights on and have a computer. So all of that goes towards keeping the office open. In order for us to do anything at all beyond that, we fundraise for that completely.
And again, those items that you mentioned for the $8,500, to me, that's entertainment. Okay, again, how does
Keep
that...
the office open as entertainment?
How does that... No, the $8,500 as far as some of the activities that you briefly mentioned.
$2,500 goes to the holiday tree lighting.
Okay, and
which
again...
we're obligated to spend.
The EGAD area, you're looking... How many square blocks do I have? 4, 5 square blocks?
It's more difficult, but it's sort of a T-shaped... It's a T-shaped area.
And again, when I go down there, I'm sorry, folks, I don't see blight. And so
well, you don't now, but had you come down, I don't know if you can hear me, I'm sure.
Yes.
Had you come down in 2010 when we formed, you would have. And they formed the CRA, as I understand it, they formed the CRA in about the year 2000, and there clearly was blight. I wasn't here then, but that's what would have happened in order to have even been able to qualify for seeking a CRA. And in the years that it took to create get the designation for the Main Street program, that wasn't done in a week or a month. That took years to make that happen, because they started in early 2000 and they didn't get that designation until 2010. I moved there in 2010, and I can tell you, when I walk up and down the street on Highland Avenue, when I first got there, I would say at least 40% of the businesses, or 35, were empty. There was no reason to go down there at all.
Okay, and I don't know if this would be for you or maybe Cindy, I don't know. But I have another question. Okay, as far as all of the projects that are supposed to be conducted underneath the old Egali Riverfront CRA, all the projects that are in the plan, are they completed yet?
The projects that are in the CRA plan?
Yes, ma'am.
No, they're not completed.
We're an 8-year-old program.
You asked about the CRA, not the Main Street, correct?
Right, but again, my point being, though, that money is coming out of the CRA, that grant is coming out of the CRA to go to EGAD, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so why in the world would we take 50,000 taxpayer dollars out of the CRA when the plan's not complete yet to give to EGAD when we still have things that we need to do to close out this CRA? And that's why that's why I'm saying these things perpetuate themselves, they continue to grow. We always find excuses to add and continue to add money from the CRAs to these different things that really have nothing to do with blight. It's all about economic development and promoting business.
That's right.
So I'm sorry, I can't
And that's what we work
this.
for. And if it weren't for the Main Street program doing anything down there, it would be exactly the way it was in 2010.
And Madam Mayor, if I can just say this, city council members, and I think about this, 90% of this grant is going towards salary. Think about that. And again, we're talking about 4 blocks, 5 blocks, maybe, a very small congested area. 90% going towards salary. Think about that. Is that good use of taxpayer money?
And in those blocks, we have increased the number of businesses by at least 24. We report all of this to the CRA every other month. We always tell them exactly what new businesses have come in, how they are adding to the CRA tax base. We've had Accent Technologies alone was $1 million investment. They would not have come there if it was the way it looked in 2010. So I'm sorry you don't like the way it looks right now, but I can guarantee you that without the Main Street program, you would be looking at a much worse neighborhood. Everybody would just be driving right by, and that's not what we have now.
Madam Mayor?
Okay, 1 minute, because I got Ms. Dittmer.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Mr. Thomas, I may have not understood your original question when you asked about the $44,000. I thought you were asking specifically what they spend their operating on. So let me just step back real quick and talk about what's listed in the agreement in the 3 categories. The $44,000 is set up for them to implement the activities that are outlined in Section 2 in the agreement. Those are different activities that Melbourne Main Street does on a daily basis that helps to encourage private investment into the CRA area. There's about 7 or 8 different categories that we list in Section 2. That yes, it's done by Ms. Packard as her role as the executive director, but all of those things are happening in encouraging the redevelopment activities in the O'Galley area. That is a necessary part of redevelopment, to have somebody actively seeking out businesses, encouraging businesses to open in the area, walking them through the city process, helping them look at the city programs that are available, the facade programs and things like that, and giving them that guidance. That's part of the role that the EGAD Main Street does for the city as part of this agreement. That's part of the services they're providing. And then the $8,500 is what, as I was referred briefly in my opening statements, that's the assistance with the programs that the city has that EGAD assists us with, whether it's reviewing facade improvement grants or implementing the business wayfinding program. Those programs, EGAD runs for the CRA. And so that's the partnership that we have with them in them helping implement those programs. So I just wanted to clarify that, because I think that was your original question, what those amounts are going towards, and that's how we have it outlined within the agreement.
No, I get what her responsibilities are. I get that, and the 44,000, like she's saying, that's really 90% of that. That's her salary, and whatever taxes or whatever in addition to that. I don't get it. I just don't get it. And this is what, and I throw this out to the city council, based on what we're hearing tonight, okay? The only thing I ask, if all of you are in complete agreement that everything that we're doing is above board and within the statute, which is cool, and I truly hope that it is, okay? The only thing I ask that we do is that we ask that the Attorney General for an opinion on what we're doing with the CRA as far as the grant and the expenditures that we're wanting to make with the grant, and get an opinion from the Attorney General that this is legit. That's all I'm asking for, guys. I just want to make sure that we're being good stewards with the taxpayers' resources, and I don't have a good feeling that we are based on what I'm hearing tonight.
And I would like to say how EGAD is being a good steward of your money, because that budget, that $45,000, that's my salary and taxes. We raise 2 years in a row. We raised $120,000, and 2 years in a row we raised $90,000. We've done. You said there was, there's nothing there. Prior to us being there, prior to us making EGAD the slightest bit interesting to anybody, there was no Intercoastal, there was no Accent Technologies. There were many of the stores on the southern side were empty. We didn't have thousands of people coming out for dog days of summer. Nor would the director of the zoo ever come down and lend his help to an event that was happening down there if we were not worth coming to. We have an event that we've done 2 years in a row. We're doing a third time next year. that is a women's lunch that Bank of America decided they would give $5,000 to. It's not on an open street. It's all fundraising. We work very, very hard for fundraising, for grants, for membership, for everything we can. The CRA money turns the lights on, pays me, which you have to have in order to have a Main Street program. To get off, it's not off the point, but I want to point out one thing. People will say, well, couldn't a merchants association do that? No, because merchants are running their businesses. They cannot show up on a Saturday and do anything other than run their store. They can't hardly volunteer for anything because they're running their stores. So the good intentions of good people are not going to cut it. The Main Street program, whether it's through a CRA or BID or whatever you want to call it, all around America, it works. It absolutely works. So if you want to have strings on the money, that's fine. We want to make sure I'm a city resident, actually in the Atlantic. I don't want anybody wasting my money. I totally get that. But there's not a penny wasted in this budget. And if we didn't work incredibly hard using a do-it-yourself model with all volunteers, I'm sorry, I have bad knees and I'm about to fall over. This would have closed, the doors would have closed a long time ago. And then you would have a blight that would be on you, and you'd have to worry about it all by yourself. I can't say it any clearer than that.
Ms. Packard, on that, back to the $44,000, does that include your rent on your building that you have to rent your office? Does that include that
No,
too?
that's about $900 a month.
So where does the rent fall in then? Under?
May I give you this?
Okay. Okay. All right. So let me,
I'm giving you
Mr. Alfrey first and then Ms. Moore. And
if I may, I'm giving you a spreadsheet that shows our CRA funding over the last 3 years. And you will see that it covers about 65% of what we really need to do. So we have to fundraise. There's no fat, there's no gristle in that.
all right. So Mr. Alfrey.
Thank you, Mayor. I will tell you now, I've been in Old Galley since pretty much 1970. I guess I'm giving my age out. But I've been in Old Galley, and I've seen when the Pink Motel was there, and I've been around a long time here. And I will tell you, I mean, there's nobody more critical of CRAs than me and Councilmember Thomas. And I understand that when you throw out CRAs, it's a political football, and it's, it's corruption, it's whatever you want to call it. I will say, as a disclosure, I contacted Ms. Packard tonight, and I kind of grilled her, and I said, look, I want to make sure that our city, we're in compliance with state law, and she agreed. I will tell you that you can't lump, CRAs are, and I like the way the city manager speaks about it, they're a tool. They're a tool for your toolbox. You use them to fix things, blight, and then you call it a day. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I've vetted and I've looked over this with O'Galley Arts District. I will say they do a great job with the volunteers. You have to look, and I'm going to speak as the businessman on this board, you have to look at your return of investments, and you have to look, and what Ms. Packard has done for her salary, I will tell you, if she can keep that up, maybe we can get kind of the bad stigma off CRAs. But I would say that, again, I'm not, you know how I feel about CRAs, but if, again, Ms. Packard assured me, look, this is what the money's for, this is what we're doing, this is the blight we're fixing. And under normal circumstances, I would say, I have to vet each one. But I tell you, talking to Ms. Packard today, and I apologize for grilling you earlier, that's not what you wanted to hear.
I believe I called you and invited it.
Well, I don't know about that. But I will say that, I appreciate what you're doing, and with all the volunteers, again, to me, it's about return on an investment. And with the salary, one salary, you basically got a handful of people doing multiple work for only $44,000. That's why I support this. Overall, CRAs, there are an issue. I can totally understand Councilmember Thomas's issue, but again, maybe if we can get the Attorney General to come back to us, and what we discussed about earlier about using that money for this, staying consistent with state law. You totally agreed. You've been great. I'm supporting this for the simple fact that what we're getting on return on investment. But I got to continue to get that, and we understood that. And that's where I wanted to put on this.
Thank you. And the only thing I'd like to add on my salary, this is hardly a 9-to-5 job. So that sounds like a great salary until you realize I probably work 60 hours one week and 70 another, and 100 million last month.
Mm-hmm. Mayor?
Yeah, Ms. Moore.
I was on the original committee when EGAD was formed, and there's some people sitting in the audience that were also on the original committee when we formed EGAD. We've come a long way from where we were. And the growth, the businesses, etc. We definitely were a blighted area. And when we decided to go into EGAD, we had the blessings of the city and a lot of volunteers. We put a lot of work in this. There's two people sitting in the front row that were both very instrumental in getting EGAD back, getting EGAD on its feet, not back, but EGAD on its feet. There's been many changes. I live in the area, I see the growth, I see what's happening, and there was a time when you could walk down Highland Avenue and all you had was empty storefronts. You had nothing going. Now we've got activity. We've got First Fridays where people are down patronizing our businesses, coming back during the week. There's a lot of activity going, and it's because of Main Street and our CRAs. And so I have to support our CRA and our Main Street, and I would like to see a show of hands in the audience as to how many people are here tonight wanting to continue with our EGAD and our Main Street. Thank you.
Now, I see folks from the Melbourne CRA, so that's great you're out here supporting.
Madam Mayor?
So, all right, wait a minute. So, are you done, Ms. Moore?
Yes, I am.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Mr. Thomas.
Okay, and this might be directed more toward the city manager. So again, you look at the millions of dollars that have gone through these CRAs from 1982, starting off with the Melbourne CRA, 1997, I think, for the O'Galley CRA. All that millions of dollars that have passed through those CRAs. Okay, every year when we go through our budget cycle, we sit here and we talk about there's no new revenue streams. And we're scratching our heads trying to figure out how we're going to be able to keep up with infrastructure costs without raising people's taxes, okay? So where's the return on investment? Because if all of this stuff is working like it should be, and I'm all pro-business, I love what's going on downtown as far as great restaurants, great entertainment, but using taxpayer dollars to augment that and to drive business incentive when we don't do that for any other districts here in the city of Melbourne, and we shouldn't, because we should have people that want to do it on their own because they love Melbourne, they love the harbor city, they're able to stand up on their own and support their own businesses without help from the taxpayer. So again, where's the return on investment? And just prior to this year, I think 3 years in a row, taxes were raised on the taxpayer because again, we couldn't afford infrastructure costs, to try to keep up with infrastructure costs. So again, when are we going to see the return on investment from all these CRA dollars that we've spent where we're going to see a positive sign in our economy?
I'll answer that two ways. One, philosophically or theoretically, whichever you want to consider it, is the thought is as you revitalize, redevelop, rebuild these downtowns, take O'Galley and Main Street both, as we've discussed before, you not only increase the property values in those areas, which feeds back into the CRA, but you get increased property values because a more vital downtown, a healthier downtown, creates a city where people want to live. And that increases property values throughout. And it encourages business relocation. There's no question that part of what's happening in our downtown and some of what's happening in O'Galley has been a factor in some of the recent locations we've had with our businesses because people want to live here. Businesses ask, where do my employees want to live? They don't want to move to a city with a dead, decaying downtown. They want to live a place where their employees will have some vitality to their life, which is where the beauty of Melbourne. We have not only that, but we have the natural amenities too for their employers. So philosophically, the thought is that the increased value, the increased vitality, the increased business relocations, and the businesses downtown help everybody's property values, which helps our real estate market, which also increases your citywide revenues. And I would argue that in Melbourne, that effect has been seen, that there has been significant change downtown. There has been significant change in O'Galley in the shorter term, but the long-term effects of those things are just that. They are long-term. You have to ask yourself, where would we be in trying to fund our infrastructure? Where would we be in trying to fund the things we're trying to do with police and fire if downtown and O'Galley were what they were 20 years ago? I'd argue that we'd be much farther behind, pushing up a much steeper hill with a lot fewer resources than we have today. So I would argue, as the guy who has to balance the books, and having been through a very similar process in the city of Sarasota, that we're getting that return on investment. And I'll take the challenge to show you that with some numbers and some looking at our values and what's happened. But you asked me that question, that's how I would answer it.
I think that can be documented. I think the real estate valuation from the time of snapshot to as current as they can get it, they can provide for you. I also would mention we're on a causeway coming over from affluent beachside neighborhoods, and what was there before was not exactly a welcome. In fact, our big challenge was how do we get the 25,000 people that go over that causeway on their way somewhere, just we're running the hell out of O'Galley. We're stopping those people. I mean, I can track who comes to some of my events if I have electronic data or Facebook posts, and we know where they're coming from, and they're not coming just from Melbourne. It is a big draw. But Satellite Beach, Indian Harbor, Indian Atlantic, Melbourne Beach, and even Vero come to O'Galley. You don't want to drive that causeway and look at what was there before. I might also say that because we got such a late start, there's so much of we're your waterfront area in the city of Melbourne. We're waterfront. We have a restaurant and a library. We've got a lot of things. We've got the infrastructure of a real town, and in fact, that's what drew me here. I'm from Alexandria, Virginia, and have spent untold time traveling through New England. Nobody has a town green except people in New England. We do. The riverfront with the park and all of that, it's beautiful. Nobody has that, and we were overlooked for a long, long time because there was no entity in place bringing it to your attention. So your well-intentioned people thing will never fly. It takes an organized effort to make anything happen.
Mayor?
Yeah, I've got Ms. Lopez and,
Okay.
all right, Ms. Lopez?
Yes, first of all, I don't have a problem with you receiving $44,000 for your efforts. I mean, nobody works for free. And also, I've been here 24 years, and I see the difference in downtown O'Galley. So I know what you're doing, and I know you have brought businesses, and businesses bring employment to the city, and that's all well and good. My only problem is, according to what I read here, this proposed agreement does not specifically prohibit the use of CRA funds for festivals.
Okay.
That's my only problem.
Okay.
I find that you should have fundraising events for festivals.
Did you
and
get
not
the
CRA.
spreadsheet I just passed out?
That's right here.
Yeah, I apologize. My fault.
That's okay. If you look at that, you see along the bottom, those are all negative figures. That's the CRA grant at the top, and that's our office expenses to stay open. Take a phone call, charge somebody for membership, have a meeting, to pay rent. That is bare bones budget. It isn't enough. So I can't stay open on the 55,000. While I appreciate it, I can't stay open at that. I have to fundraise through grants, sponsorship, anything possible outside saying, hey, here's a bucket, give me money. I have to stay open. So it's not possible for my budget to go one nickel to anything you disagree with. It's not possible. I just need to stay open. And then the rest of it is on us. by fundraising, by getting Bank of America to sponsor something that's a really rather, to 90 people, but they're coming anyway, et cetera. So trust me, if those numbers don't convince you, nobody standing here is going to get through.
It does, as long as you convinced me that you're not using CRA funds for festivals, I'm with you.
Well, then you're with me.
All right, Ms. Moore?
I'd like to call on Planning and Zoning, Cindy Dittmer, if she will share with the CRA funds what we have done for the public in the O'Galley area. Can you highlight some of the things?
Some of the CRA projects that we've done. We purchased the Square property and did all of the current renovations. There were some partnerships, along with that. We've done
band show.
Right, the band show was mostly funded by the Rotary Club, but the overall improvements, we've done improvements and updates at the pier. Various different streetscaping programs. We've purchased the public parking lot on Highland so that there's public parking available in the downtown area.
And it's paved?
Yes, and it now has the paving within there.
Lighting?
We're working on lighting. We have been funding to pay for the engineering costs on the lighting to get that designed. The banners that are currently in the district. I'm sure there's things I'm forgetting, but
trash cans and park benches.
Yes, the benches and trash cans that went in last year.
And the wayfinding system.
The business wayfinding. So there's been quite a bit that's been done.
Which all enhanced the O'Galley area.
Correct. In the O'Galley area, unfortunately, during the downturn in the economy, their revenues went down significantly, and they are just this year barely getting back up to the revenues that they had prior to the recession. So there was a significant drop in revenue for the CRA during those times.
It was.
Thank you.
All right, so I've got Ms. Thomas.
Yes, I just have to say I totally support this. I just, if you've been around for any amount of time in the city of Melbourne, you've seen what both downtowns looked like and where they have come. And I guess if you just came in to the city recently, or you've just started looking at the issues recently, you could absolutely say, well, these areas look great. These are wonderful. What looks blighted here? Well, we've come a long way and we've worked really hard, and we're only now starting to see that we're starting to get results. And I would hate to see us go backwards on this. I think this is a really small amount of money, and it's being used very responsibly in both main streets, and I totally support this.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
So I got Mr. Elfrey, and then...
Yeah. And again, I just want to reiterate, 99% of the times I'm going to have an issue with CRA. There's a 1% time where I say, you did a heck of a job. And I have completely vetted this, and I want to thank you for what you're doing and being a model for what CRA should be.
Well, thank you.
And I want to thank you. And again, that's I'm going to again support this. But I'll vet it every year, and I'll make sure and just continue to keep up the good work. And I thank you. And again, it's kind of. I like in the future when I deal with people in CRAs, I can say, look, you need to go to EGAD and see how they're running it. CRA shouldn't be forever, and that's the biggest issue. They go on to perpetuate, and money gets lost and stuff like that. You have it down to every nickel, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Thomas.
Madam Mayor, the only thing that I ask, and again, I applaud city council members for their confidence in what we're doing. And the only thing I ask, guys, is let's ask the Attorney General for an opinion to make sure that this grant that we're taking out of the CRA to EGAD meets the statute of the CRA State Statute 163. That's the only thing I'm asking. And it don't cost a dime. And then we have a clear conscience, and we can look the taxpayer straight in the eye and saying, hey, we're making good use of your dollars within the law. And that's all I ask. That's what I put on the table.
I don't think we need the Attorney General. I mean, these CRAs get audited and get reported once a year to the county. So I feel the Attorney General, I disagree with that. Mr. McNeese.
Well, I would let you finish, but I want to add something to my answer. I guess, since you called on me regarding return on investment. And we can talk about property values. And if you think about some of the businesses, it's easy to think about downtown. It's right over here. Helen Blazes, for example, and some of the newer businesses that have come downtown, would they be downtown if not for the investment that's been made, putting values, putting money back into the CRA, improving the infrastructure, increasing the vitality? Would those things have happened? I want to give you an example. Someone that I know well was looking at a professional job position here in the city of Melbourne, a pretty solid professional position. And they're spent 30 years in Florida, but they hadn't been in this area for a while. So they investigated first in trying to figure out whether to apply for a job here by going onto Google Earth and going into Street View and driving their virtual automobile from the southern eastern boundary of Melbourne down on US 1, up US 1 about to the O'Galley River, looking back and forth both sides of the street. And without a lot of enthusiasm, kind of decided, I'm not sure that's a place where I want to relocate my family, if that's a representative view of the city of Melbourne, because again, they hadn't been here for a while. So that person the next day thought there was something about the job that maybe they were missing, so they went back to Google Earth and took some turns and drove their little virtual car down New Haven and said, aha, there's some, and you can see it on Google Earth apparently. There is some vitality here. This looks like a nice little city. There must be something going on here more than was apparent yesterday. Well, that person decided to apply for that job. Now I'm going to ruin the story because that person was me. That's a true story. And the visible evidence of the success of the CRA was enough for me to say, that looks like a place I'd take my family and where we'd want to live. And so these investments, now you take the ripples of that to the businesses who make the same decisions, to the employees for people like Harris and Northrop Grumman who make those same kind of decisions where they want to live. I'm here to tell you the return on investment is huge in those kind of situations. And the ripples of that do take 20 and 30 and 40 years to show up, but they're real.
I'm glad you said that because I could share the same story. I moved here in 2010 and drove around. Air Force baby, I want to know every corner of this place. Cocoa Beach, all over the place, went everywhere. I bumped into O'Galley and I went, wow, this is like New England. It's a little sketchy, but this place is a gem. This place needs to see itself the way I see itself. And then I realized there were other people that had the same thought. You can't do it overnight, but it has amazing potential because of the infrastructure and where it's situated geographically. It would be a travesty not to put even more effort behind it.
Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Elfrey.
Like I said, I definitely support this. My issue now, though, is we got to make sure that with all the issues with the CRAs and there's people against it, and we need to make sure that we do it by the book and the money goes and we all kind of agree on that. I don't think there's an issue with asking asking the state or anything, say, hey, is there an issue here? Because if there is, we can just adjust it to make sure it works. Mm-hmm. And that's where, when we discussed today, it said, when we said, hey, I have an issue with this, and she said, this is where the money goes. And I said, well, that makes sense. Because I think it is working for the time being. But I think we're really shorting ourselves to say, well, we don't need any kind of, attorney general opinion because I don't think that's the way we should look at it. I think if there is an issue, let's just fix it and keep moving on. Because if we don't police ourselves, and I'm telling you right now, we have other people out there in other governmental offices that will be policing us. So that's just my thought. And I kind of agree with Councilmember Thomas. And I honestly feel there's not an issue with the CRA. With EGAD, I don't think there's a problem. I think you're running bare bones. But if there's an issue, we need to find out and fix it. That's just my opinion.
Right.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah, Ms. Moore.
This is a question directed to our city attorney. Mrs. Dowey, do we not, as a city, look at our CRAs and make sure that we are conforming to the state requirements.
Everything's on. All right, 6.
And this issue, I have focused the research on the issue of festivals. And so to the extent that this item, this money is not used for festivals, then it's not, how do I begin this? As you may remember, the county attorney has issued an opinion saying the money cannot be used for festivals. I have a different opinion than the county attorney. My research has focused on that issue. The Attorney General has certainly issued opinions related to the use of CRA monies. I will say that the county attorney disagrees, is my understanding, with the Attorney General's opinion on that. I can submit a request for an AG opinion on the particulars of the fact pattern we have at issue. Every fact pattern has its own nuances that could lead to a different opinion. I can certainly submit that to them. The only thing I would point out is it's not an immediate answer, so you have to keep in mind that there would be a delay, likely if they even chose to answer. They don't answer all of them, but if they even chose to answer, it would be months before we got a response.
Okay, Mayor. All right. All right, Ms. Moore.
I would like to move ahead, and I would like to move for a recommendation.
Okay, I got Mr. Thomas, who I honor to.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I'd like to make a motion that we request that the Attorney General's office issue an opinion on whether we can give this grant out of the Old Galley Riverfront CRA to EGAD in the amount of $55,000 in the 3 particular areas that are indicated in our packet, which is General Operating Administration, CRA District Seasonal Lighting Project, and program activities consistent with the CRA plan for a grand total of $55,000. That's my motion.
Yeah, and I have to agree with that. I have to second that.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Excuse me, may I sit down?
Yes,
If you need me, I'll come back. Thank you.
Yes, I still have 2 speakers also that need to come up too on this issue. Is there any way I need to hold off on this motion? Because I didn't.
Yeah, I would ask that you have the public comment. I didn't realize there were more speakers that need to speak before the motion.
All right, so let me delay that. Stephen Mitchell, followed by Brian Stevens. Oh, I got one more? Okay. Eric V. Ellenbach, okay.
I certainly wished I had a lot more than 3 minutes. But, I sent in a paper today.
Yes, we all got it.
What I was going to comment, and I asked that something be displayed, the O'Galley CRA area map. Is that
Okay.
were provisions made for that? First of all, I don't think I
need
should
a name
start
and
yet.
a-
I'm asking if
Okay, so I need a name and a city, please.
Okay, I'm Stephen Mitchell, and I live at 1248 Highland Avenue, and that is in the old O'Galley area.
Okay.
Okay, and
And you live there, or is this a business?
I live there.
Okay.
Can we start the clock over, or is that gonna?
Yeah, we'll start the clock over.
And do we have that map?
Yeah.
Okay. First, I want to compliment Lisa. I think she is doing a great job with the EGAD Main Street or Art Districts thing. I do not necessarily believe that
Wait a
that
minute.
is a CRA effort solely. That is revitalizing the city, and that's not
right.
just CRA. So anyway.
Kevin, let's change that to 3 minutes. All right, so we've got the map up on the
Okay.
screen.
So anyway, my objective of speaking to you today is really to ask you to have a review, request a review, and conduct a meeting to review the Old Galley CRA. Because I have been to many of the meetings and different, and I've talked to the offices here, the Division of Program Development, or whatever it's called, and I have a lot of concerns. I do not have a concern with what's being asked to be approved today, because that's a system that's been set up in a long time, and there's jobs and everything else possibly associated with that. But I think we need to look at it from now to the future. And my biggest concern is, if we look at the map up here, the Ogallie CRA runs basically from the Ogallie River all the way up to Parkway or something, and it goes from the railroad tracks to the Indian River. There are 783 pieces of property in that area. 124 of them are in the Main Street area. And Lisa only addresses the Main Street area. She has nothing to do with the rest of the CRA area. It's only Main Street. All of the original documentations to support the CRA was the slum and blighted conditions for the whole area. Yet we spend 100% of the funds on just the area that she has responsibility for. Nothing is spent in the outlying areas. There were many comments made by the board here today, and I can address a lot of them myself. I picked Ogallie to live in. I lived in a beautiful home on the water in Satellite Beach. I picked a non-water home to live in Satellite Beach. I paid probably 5 times more for it when I bought it than what it's worth now. So I'm not convinced, and this is 10 years ago, that values are going up. Okay, in our area, we have a lot of crime. We have 20 vacant homes. We have the police there every night monitoring some of them in the recent. So slum and blighted conditions exist, and the CRA is not addressing them at all. Okay, all the monies go into the Main Street area. In this here paper that I sent to you, so if we look at the overall funding, there's about $400,000 for the CRA. That's about what it is. 25% of it is contributed by the business area. 75% is contributed by the non-business area. But yet nothing gets put back into it. And when I've asked the representatives from the city about that, they say, well, they're not authorized for any activities outside the Main Street area. Nothing can be funded. But yet things in the past have been identified to me as possibilities. One is the historic area, the preservation of the historic area, which my house is one of them, that there's possibilities of lighting, sidewalks, easement area improvements, all this. Nothing's been done, nothing at all. So I'm in agreement. I think we need a review of the CRA. I'm not against getting this particular item approved, but I think before the next items are addressed in the funding of a CRA, not the beautification of downtown Ogallie, which I can argue some things are better and some things aren't. That's kind of my position on it.
Okay. All right, so you want to wrap it up?
Pardon me?
You want to wrap it up? You just need
Well,
to...
I could go on and on and on, because I can give examples of whatever you wanted me to give an example of. I have spent not a lot of time, but in the evening when my wife is watching TV things that I can't stand, I will look on the internet and do stuff. I am not dedicated to doing this. I got way too many other things I do. But I opened a page, I read the documents, and I said, they're not spending money the way that they originally used for the justification to get the money.
Okay, so, yeah, Ms. Lopez?
I have a question.
Okay.
What exactly do you want to see in your area? Is it because there's crime in your area, or do you want to see businesses in your area? What exactly do you want in your area? Do you have enough lighting?
No. In fact, I've asked that particular question directly. We have a high crime rate on a certain couple streets with very inadequate lighting, and we said, is there a way the CRA could fund for some additional lighting? It's in the original justification as things they could do, and the answer was, no, we can't do anything in that area. So, but lighting is one. Sidewalk safety, sidewalks and safety. Victoria Landings was built there. We have a whole bunch of elderly people now walking around with their strollers or whatever, and no sidewalks, or the sidewalks that we have are in disrepair, non-continuous, and we have them walking in the streets. We have a safety hazard with that. So I can go on. I provided a list in what I provided. There's a lot of things that were originally said as justification, but they're not being implemented.
So you're just an area that's been forgotten by the CRA?
Well, I think the whole CR, anything outside, not just, I live in the little southern quadrant area, which is a little more historic and probably one of the better areas of the whole Galley area. But, you know, nothing anywhere has been addressed. And a sad thing is no one even knows the CRA exists outside the business area.
Okay.
We
All
need
right,
to-
so Ms.
May-
Packard wants to come back and
Address that?
address it. Because at this point, we don't have a whole lot of information to make
We
that
definitely need to
decision.
get information.
Yeah.
We
I
definitely
mean,
need information.
Yes, we need a lot more information.
From
Mr.
me?
Mitchell?
I mean,
No,
that's
no,
great
sir,
enough.
from staff.
Mayor, may I ask, sir, what street do you live on?
I live on Highland Avenue.
On Highland? East? It'd
South.
be-
I'm the last house on Highland Avenue.
Okay, okay.
All right.
A point of order, ma'am. I yielded my time for two public speakers to come up and talk and not to yield back to Ms. Packard. for my
She's
motion.
entitled to come back.
State Attorney, is that true?
Am I done?
My understanding is that the motion was yielded just for the public speakers.
Okay, all right, we'll get to speakers. All right, thank you, Mr. Mitchell. We'll ask, next speaker is Brian Stevens.
Good evening. Thanks for the time. My name is Brian Stevens, Vieira, Florida. I am the VP of the O'Galley Arts District Main Street program. We're an independent 501c3. We operate independently from the CRA. We do receive and have received in the past significant grants from the CRA. We don't feel entitled to those grants. We very much appreciate your consideration in that regard. We make every effort to be excellent stewards of the funds that we're provided. We consider ourselves in many regards the CRA's boots on the ground for what they want to do. And that's specified in the grant agreement, in the CRA contract that we have with the CRA. But we go so far beyond that. We are focused on areas that are outside of the immediate Main Street. With the new economic climate that we're stepping into, our capabilities are only growing. I understand that, and it has been expressed many times by council, that we have made significant strides in eliminating blight and making positive improvements in the area. But I will tell you that anecdotally, I do get approached by major Tier 1 business owners who see deficiencies in this city, who see deficiencies specifically that could be addressed in the O'Galley area outside of our immediate Main Street program. And we understand that the vitality of Main Street is affected by areas that are outside of the Main Street area, but still within our CRA. We are actively addressing those issues. Deficiencies include residential updates, places to stay, places for new businesses to be housed that support existing businesses within the city of Melbourne. We're addressing all those things, and I want to say specifically too that we would not be able to function without Lisa Packard. What she does for us in keeping our doors open, being our liaison to the city and quarterbacking all of our activities has been recognized throughout the state by state Main Street programs. She has single-handedly made sure that what she does is so focused and so pointed on what we need to do that we've received awards for that. I can't even really say we. I mean, that's Lisa's doing. The Main Street program is important because we are the CRA's boots on the ground. And the issue at hand is whether you're going to allow us, despite the political climate, to keep our doors open and work for you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Stevens. Next is Eric Hellebrock.
I don't see why y'all afraid of Pam Bondi. She's hot looking. I have no problems with this state attorney. She's state attorney general. I think maybe we should consult her. You know, it's kind of funny that you've got the three people that spoke before me. The one who's against the CRA lives down there. And you got the guy from Vieira, and the lady who works there on the city salary lives in Indian Harbor, but they don't live there. But you know, this is my stomping ground. I too remember the Pink Hotel with fond memories. This CRA, there are people who would say that this stuff, this blight, wouldn't have happened if y'all would have left your mitts off of the city of O'Galley. If the city of O'Galley would have never merged with Melbourne, this discussion wouldn't be occurring. Okay, let me point something else out to y'all. Okay, the CRAs are not responsible for the regentrification of downtown Melbourne. What caused Melbourne to bloom up and downtown bloom up and all that was the fact that FIT kicked off the rat scaler and some people sank some money and opened up some bars. I'm not even going to mention her name, but she was my favorite counsel. She fought for years to keep more bars from downtown. All of a sudden, the bars show up. Boom. Okay, now let's talk about what's going on down. I object fiercely to the description of blighted. Okay, you know, what was it like? Oh, I came here in 2010, and it was kind of sketchy. Oh, dude, we had a bar down there that had 3 stories. It was cranking. It got killed when the parking for it got ate up by some development. That's what killed the Intercoastal. And I'm not talking the brewery. I'm talking the bar with 3 stories. We had a coffee house down there where the drag queens would come from Miami to perform. Yes, okay. There were some empty storefronts and all there, but those storefronts could have been with a small adjustment of some city codes involving adult entertainment and so forth and so on. We could have boomed in downtown O'Galley. This CRA wasn't necessary. But I've got to point out to this one guy, oh yes, it's really, downtown O'Galley is attractive and all that, but I can still go down the street off Aurora Road and hang out at Back Street and watch the parade. That ain't going to change. Okay, let's talk about Victoria. I don't know, get me going about Victoria Landings. How that even happened, because the city, I don't have to tell you about what it was before it became Victoria Landings. Mm-hmm. Okay, and the fact that the city doesn't own this building is people should have been shot for that. But here's the whole issue. Okay, yes, this CRA thing, it's made it real nicey and down there and all that, and there's been some, but you notice. A lot of the businesses down there don't stay. It's very artsy and so forth and so on, and that's fine. But the damn streets roll up at 8. You go down there at 8 o'clock. Go down there right now. 10, 15 years ago, you had the Intercoastal, 3 bars cranking. You had Johnny's Bar cranking. You had the coffee house cranking. Okay, and then not to mention a couple questionable restaurants that, you know, the Brass Balls and so forth and so on. But let's talk about the rest of the area. Rocky Point, we all know what's going on. 3 streets at Guava. You know, we all know what's going on up there. Okay, that they benefit from the CRA stuff. So it's kind of superficial, and we really didn't need the CRA to begin with. But somebody's concept of what a downtown should be, or what most people wanted, their concept of what most people wanted, which really wasn't the case because we didn't need the help.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Mr. Ellabrock. All right, so I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to council. We have a motion by Mr. Thomas, second by Mr. Elfrey. Do we want to repeat that? All right, so the motion for Mr. Thomas is, you want to go ahead and repeat that?
Yes, ma'am. To request that the Attorney General's office issue an opinion on whether or not it is legal for the O'Galley Riverfront CRA to do the $55,000 grant to EGAD in the 3 categories mentioned in our packet, which is General Operating Administration, $44,000, CRA District Season Lighting Project, $2,500, and then program activities consistent with CRA Plan, $8,500.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I second that.
All right. And Mr. Alfrey second. So any further discussion?
Mayor?
Yeah, Ms. Lopez.
I just wish we could do both. I wouldn't mind funding this program and also getting that information as well.
We do need to make, okay.
Yeah, because I think we should know it for future reference as well. Mm-hmm. So we know how to take it from now on. But I still
we need to do it separate, because that's what
No, I know we need to do it separate, but I'm just saying I wish we could do both, though. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Mayor, I'd like a roll call vote on this.
All right, well, we're still in discussion. Anyone else want to discuss
Yeah,
All right,
okay,
so
Mayor,
Mr.
just to verify, Councilman Thomas, is this to fund this for this year and ask the Attorney General? Can you clarify that?
I would like to get the Attorney General's opinion first before we fund it.
I guess my issue would be, trying to, stop them from operating when I truly vetted, and I think my concern is not that they're not working out, that they're not doing their jobs or they're not being effective. My concern is that the Attorney General, his opinion. So I would actually ask if we could do both. I think that would be a great idea, and it would lead us in the right direction.
I wouldn't have.
Okay, that
We're in
part, as
discussion
far
right
as
now.
being
Yeah.
audited by the Attorney General, I didn't realize that we're going to stop the funding from the CRA. So that I disagree with.
Well, that's why we are in discussion, Mayor, so
Yeah.
seeing about the motion.
All right.
So-
Madam Mayor, if I could
Yeah.
just, a point of order here. The motion is to seek an opinion from the Attorney General. She's not performing an audit. I would be submitting the fact pattern. She wouldn't be reading the agreement, none of that. I would be submitting a fact pattern that basically would refer to the 3 ways that we're asking the funds be used, and ask in my request for an opinion whether that's a valid use of the CRA funding. So she's not auditing. We are requesting an opinion. She can say no, but we can ask for it.
And
Ms. Dolly, you have already looked at this issue as far as on the city level.
I have.
And you've already expressed your opinion and
I
you
have.
agree. So the reason I disagree with this is that we already have your opinion. That's what we pay you for. So I don't think we need to go any further. That's where I'm at.
Well,
All right.
Mayor, we have to vote on Mr. Thomas's motion, but I'm looking forward to making a motion to approve the grant funding.
Okay. All right. So right now.
right now, we're in still discussion with Councilman Thomas and I.
So,
Mr. Thomas.
So what if we this is approved, my motion is approved, okay? Then, okay, let's go back. If we approve the grant, okay, with the motion that I currently have on the table, then the Attorney General comes back and with her opinion says, in my opinion, this is not the way the CRA should be used. Okay, we've already set in motion the grant that's on the table. Then what? Then what happens?
I can answer that. If you look
okay.
if you can look at the packet that we can as a city pay in monthly payments. That was part of the packet on when we're paying this money.
That's correct. It can be paid on a monthly basis.
We'll pay it on a monthly basis, and we get that back. If there's no issue, we're fine. If there's an issue, we can address it as council at that time. And I think that would be prudent, and I think that would serve well, because if there is a problem, we can maybe hopefully fix it or adjust it, or we'll do what we have to do to stay in compliance with state law.
Okay.
All right. So,
No.
No.
We're
out of-
opening up a can of worms here.
yeah, I close the public hearing. Ms.
We
Catherine.
have already granted downtown Melbourne CRA their funding. We've granted, if I'm correct, Babcock Street CRA. We
No,
haven't yet.
no.
Okay.
They don't have a Main Street program.
Oh, you don't have a Main Street. I'm sorry. That's right.
That's right.
We're using all your money for
That's right.
Babcock Street.
Plus more.
Plus more, thank you. So I think we're opening up a can of worms here. I would like to see us fund this evening. If we want to get another opinion on it, then we look at it for the year of 2018 and move ahead, which would then give, if we are voted against, which I doubt that we will be, because I trust our city attorney, then that gives the Main Street time to figure out how they're going to function.
Well, I mean, that could be your next motion after this one.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
I think it's important to be clear here. Regardless of what year you would ask the opinion from the Attorney General on, if you were to say, we're looking for an opinion on how we're going to spend the monies for next fiscal year, if she issued an opinion that was contrary to what we've done this year, we would have to reimburse from the general fund the money that was spent by the CRA. So it doesn't matter what year you ask the Attorney General to consider. That money would have to be reimbursed if it was improperly spent. And to my knowledge, there's nothing in the agreements that requires the Main Street program to be the one to reimburse. The contract says this is how you shall use the money. The reimbursement would come from the general fund back to the CRA.
Okay. Any other discussion? We'll go ahead and vote on this motion. All right, so Ms. Moore asked for a roll call vote.
Councilmember Debbie Thomas.
Nay.
Councilmember Alfrey.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Tim Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Nay.
Vice Mayor Minus.
Nay.
Mayor Meehan.
I vote nay. The motion dies. Ms. Moore, would you go ahead with your motion?
Yes. I move to recommend approval of the 2017-2018 grant funding agreement with the Ugali Arts District Main Street, Inc., and approval of funding of $55,000 from the 2017-2018 Old Ugali Riverfront CRA budget number 56300-552-534050.
Second.
All right, I have a motion for approval of item 16 as stated in council's package by Ms. Moore, second by Vice Mayor Minus, and I know Lopez also voted too. Discussion?
Yes, Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Alfrey.
So we're saying on our last motion, we do not want the Attorney General to check whether we're in state law. Am I correct? Right.
Yeah,
So we're not
'cause
asking
they had our
that.
city attorney do that.
Well,
No, now say it again.
no, we voted.
Voted against.
We were voted against that. We asked the Attorney General to ensure we're in compliance with state law. So
Okay.
the issue I would have now is, I have no problem funding this, knowing that they're in state law, but if, I have a problem with this now, because now we're saying, we don't care what the state says, we're gonna fund it anyway. That's the problem with CRAs. When I spoke with Ms. Packard, she assured me, look, this is how we do it, and I believe her. I believe they're doing the right thing, but I think the council is very short-sighted right now to realize it's not, I trust our city attorney as well, but we have outside forces that we get certified letters that our CRAs are not in compliance. How can we argue that we're not in compliance when we won't even ask the Attorney General to take a look at it? Because if there's an issue, we can fix it. I think that's bad business.
No.
I'm personally, that's bad business.
I call for the vote.
Mayor?
Yeah,
Mayor,
Vice Mayor.
I also want to state
Mayor,
something too.
I just, the bottom line is that going through all of this, our city attorney has given us the information, has given us an explanation on that. And I'm trusting my city attorney on this, and I'm going by what she says. So and I support this 110% on giving the CRA the $55,000.
All right, Ms. Lopez?
Yeah, I support the funding also because I think it's going for a good cause, and I do believe that they have done remarkable for the downtown area. My only problem is basically that if we're doing something wrong, we're just going to continue every year doing the wrong thing over and over again, and it's going to cost us more. So I don't know, I'm torn. Even though I support this program, I am so torn that the city may get more and more into trouble on this.
But
That's all.
How are we in trouble? We haven't even got
I don't
any-
know it. I just don't know it. I
All right.
really don't know it.
Mr.
Mayor.
McNeese?
Piece of perspective. As far as I know, one Brevard County Commissioner has alleged that spending in the CRAs for festivals and parades is not consistent with state law. That's what we're talking about. Neither of the Main Street agreements neither the Melbourne Main Street agreement that you've already approved, nor this one that's before you tonight, allow for or are budgeting any money for festivals or parades. So even that one remote criticism that has come to you from one county commissioner isn't at play here, because these agreements don't fund festivals and parades. So the risk that we're way out there doing something that might turn out later to be improper, I would say is fairly low given that circumstance. And we will continue to be audited every year, and we look at these things, but nobody on earth wants these things to be compliant with state law more than Ms. Dolly, and second in line in that group is me. And so it's very important to us that we stay consistent with state law, and we'll continue as we bring these to you each year to do our very best to ensure that we are. But I just wanted, for perspective, there seemed to be a notion here that we're being deluged with criticisms about illegal activity or something, and I just don't think that's a fair characterization.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor?
All right, Mr. Thomas.
Yes, ma'am. And again, with everybody's confidence up here that we're doing things right, I'm shocked that this wasn't approved. I'm absolutely shocked. It's just, it blows my mind that we wouldn't want to take and get an opinion from the Attorney General just to make sure, guys, that we're doing everything by the statute and we're using taxpayers' money the way it needs to be used. I'm really disappointed and shocked, but that's all I got to say.
All right, Mr. Elfrey.
And I will say, I understand a notion that we're doing things incorrectly. I vetted this and I looked at it and I said, I think they're doing the right thing and they're doing a wonderful job. We have outside forces throughout the state, and it's more than one commissioner. It's actually the county commission attorney. And I got a copy of a letter that says that our opinion disagrees with our city attorney. Now, I'll take our city attorney all day long. She's very sharp. But at the end of the day, she's not the attorney general. And if there's an issue, we can't fix it. I'm just asking simply that if there's an issue, we're all in agreement that we just fix it. I mean, I don't think there is, but to say we don't, I just think, again, that's bad business.
All right, so I've got a motion and a second, so let's call the question. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those oppose?
Nay.
And I vote aye, and the motion passes. Mr. McEwen, you've got those votes? 5-2? Very good. All right, thank you.
And
Without...
Madam Mayor, if I may say.
Yeah, Mr. Elfrey.
Yeah, and the reason I vote again, I thank you for what you're doing. Hopefully you can continue, but hopefully when later on it's come down the road, we can get this addressed and put people's mind at ease about CRAs. Just continue doing what you're doing, and I greatly appreciate it. But you're approved at this time.
All right.
Well,
so,
and there'll be a reason why.
all right.
Thank you, though.
So the motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Packer, for all your hard work and everybody that came out. So thank you. Without objection, I'm going to reconvene as council for the remaining items. Item number 17 is a discussion item on the regulation of sober homes, and this will be under the city attorney's office. Miss Allison Dolly.
Yes, ma'am. This item is before you at the request of City Council. There were some complaints about allegations that the city did not regulate sober homes out of residential neighborhoods and demanding action by this City Council. So City Council, if I can refresh your recollection, asked me to explain the regulation of sober homes. This phrase sober homes encompasses so many different types of uses, but generally it's a term that's used for a group of people that are recovering, either alcoholics or former drug abusers that have are choosing to live together as a reinforcement to continue to stop using alcohol or illegal drugs, and it's a form of almost like a halfway house. It's typically not something that's a long term that someone would live there for 5 years. It's kind of a transitional arrangement that people have. But again, it's not a defined term. So a lot of them you just have to consider on a case-by-case basis. The reason it's significant in how we would or would not regulate them is that there is federal legislation that prohibits us some of our regulation against sober homes. The key here is that there's the Fair Housing Act that prohibits discrimination. One of the classifications that we cannot discriminate on the basis of is disability. And people with disabilities, inclusive in that group, are people that are either alcoholics, recovering alcoholics, or people that are recovering illegal drug abusers. So you cannot have a regulation that would treat that group of people differently than you would treat anyone else. It's significant in our zoning code that we don't define what makes up a family. That can be pretty dangerous ground in these days. We don't say how many unrelated people can live together as a family. We don't qualify that only 2 people that are unrelated can live together in a family. We don't do that. We also don't have parking regulations in our residential districts saying how single-family homes, how many cars you can have. We don't regulate how many children you can have. So we don't regulate how many people can live in that home. In light of that, that's the touchstone that you want to use when you evaluate people that choose to live together as a family, whether they are recovering alcoholics or not. You have to treat them the same. So when I hear the word sober home, I typically think of a group of adults that are living together as a family. And so we can't treat them any different than we treat other families in the city of Melbourne. Now that doesn't mean, or let me go back. The other thing that the federal law is very protective against is if you can use, if you can think of another reason that people would be treated differently, whether it's race, national origin, and how we've all been very well being mindful not to discriminate on those bases. You have to use that same logic now when you're talking about these sober homes, okay? So there are different types of discrimination that are prohibited. One is the intentional discrimination. It might be something where you would actually write into your ordinances that a sober home cannot be in a residential district. That's explicit. That would be prohibited by federal law, and we don't do that, nor do we want to do that. Another type of discrimination is a discriminatory effect. Sometimes you'll hear that term disparate impact. And the idea is that statistically, whatever law you have has a greater impact on a protected class. So an example might be distance, square footage. Some cities might say each individual living in the home should have 200 square feet. That can have an impact on a sober home that would be disproportionate. So the Department of Justice that would enforce the Fair Housing Act has claimed has won cases that says such a thing would be considered disparate impact, and so it'd be prohibited discrimination. Then there's this third categorization of discrimination that's unique to disabilities. When we have a law that doesn't have a discriminatory impact, it's not intentionally discriminatory, the reality is if someone has a disability, we are required to give that person a reasonable accommodation. The easiest way to think about this is in concrete terms. If you can imagine somebody that has uses a wheelchair, and they need a wheelchair ramp to access their house. But the setback rules don't allow for the ramp to be put at their front door. We would need to provide a reasonable accommodation to come up with a solution to work with the person in the home to try to figure out how to kind of solve that problem, right? And it might mean that we modify their setback requirements to allow them to put the ramp in. It's reasonable accommodations, not anything anyone asks for, just the reasonable ones. So when you think about this in terms of people with disabilities, including people that are recovering alcoholics, recovering drug users, the same applies. It might be that our fire code would seem like it would apply in that case, but because the cost of sprinkling the entire house may be prohibitive, we may need to provide a reasonable accommodation. We may not, but it's something that we have to consider. So even though I think that the people that were coming to council demanding action were coming so that we would wanting you to regulate sober homes out of residential areas, I actually have a recommendation that what we do is create the authority for the city manager or his designee to provide that reasonable accommodation. It is required by federal law, and to create a single point of contact helps us make sure we're doing the right thing. We have a single point of contact at the city that if someone needs a reasonable accommodation, they know who to contact, and there's a procedure that we follow to make sure that we have that give and take, that discussion. And then if by some chance one of the zoning rules or other rules that we have in the city need to be modified for that particular reasonable accommodation, that way the city manager has the authority from city council to respond appropriately. I can say in the past, we've done that on an informal basis, but there is a great deal of case law coming out of the federal courts and through the Department of Justice that every consent decree is requiring that there be someone declared that single point of contact. Is becoming more and more important to the Department of Justice that we can show that we do it right. And so I would ask for consideration of council to allow me to present to you a code change that would allow for that procedure to authorize the city manager or his designee to review requests for reasonable accommodation, and then to allow for the waiver of city code if a reasonable accommodation is necessary. It's very important that that request not be politicized, that neighbors not comment on it. We can't speculate about what needs, what the disability might cause, or the more you can remove it from that procedure, really the better shape you're going to be in defending on a Fair Housing Act.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dolly. Any questions for Ms. Dolly? Mr. Thomas?
Yeah, Allison, so if you get one of these requests for reasonable accommodation and there's a cost involved, who pays the cost?
Well, it would all go into the factor of what is reasonable, right? And so it depends. It depends. The thing that I keep coming back to is there's no bright line rule that you must always do this. You can't always say, and in no event will you spend more than $100, you know? But for the most part, there's going to be a common sense balancing, certainly within the city manager's spending authority. I can't even imagine it would go that high. But you want to allow for that flexibility to try to solve the problem. I think more than anything, it will be about waiving rules as opposed to, you wouldn't have to build the ramp yourself. You have to waive the rule that requires, that allows the person to go build the ramp.
Mayor.
All right. Mr. McNeese, did you want to say no?
No, Allison just said it. In that case that she talked about with the ramp, the city wouldn't have to build the ramp. We would only have to let the homeowner do it.
Gotcha.
All right. Ms. Lopez?
So we're basically voting on both of those issues, 1 and 2, is that correct?
No. We're going to vote either 1 or 2.
It's actually more of a discussion. I'm looking for direction. I want to make sure that the council would like me to fashion an ordinance that will create that reasonable accommodation process and allow the city manager to be that point of contact or his designee.
So
The
both
alternative,
then?
it is both.
Both.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's a discussion. I don't need to have a motion. It's more if I can get a sense of the direction from the council, that's what I'm looking for.
All right. Mr. Elfrey?
Yeah, actually, for the city attorney, anything that we can do to make sure that we're in compliance with state or federal law, I appreciate it, whether it's with this or CRAs. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Ms. Moore?
I don't live in an HOA, but HOAs have a lot of rules.
They do.
Would they be in compliance if they chose not to have a sober house within their HOA boundaries?
I learned very early on that the city never wants to get involved in HOA matters.
Right.
I agree. But it was just a thought that because so many have, you can't plant this, but you could plant this, you can do this, but you can't do that. So it was just something that was floating around in my mind.
Okay. Any other discussion? Yeah, Ms. Lopez?
Yeah, I could support this if it's a case-by-case situation.
Definitely.
Because,
Yeah.
every situation is different. So I could support it as long as it's case-to-case.
All right. Yeah, Mr.
Member,
Thomas?
I think this is a great idea too, and I approve of the guidance from the city attorney and also the city manager. I think we should give them the authority to do that.
All right. I have a speaker. It's not a public hearing, but I'm going to allow Mr. Ellebrock to make a comment.
First of all, Miss Dolly, I was wrong in not supporting you for your position because damn, you're good. I was quite impressed.
I didn't even know that, Mr. Ellebrock.
I was straight up with that, ma'am. I thought I was more than overt about that, but damn, that's for a Stetson grad, pretty damn impressive.
DePaul University.
My apologies, ma'am. I don't come to you as your local political hack right now. I come to you as Eric V. Ellebrock, who spent over 10 years working for Circles of Care, our local mental health facility. We also at that time ran the detox. I was an emergency services worker for a number of years, and I was also contracted for the jail. I happen to know a little bit about this thing. Stepping aside here real quick, what my impression was, the people in the neighborhood came to you looking for the city council and the city to kick them people out of their neighborhood. That's basically that's the impression I got. Geographical location is a recognized treatment modality for heroin addiction or opiate addiction. Okay? You can't do that. I agree with her. The name sober house is very misleading. You don't need to do that with somebody who's an alcoholic because, alcohol is legal. The idea is to take the addict out of his environment and put him somewhere else where he cannot readily attain, where he doesn't have the contacts to readily attain his drugs. These quote, sober houses or halfway houses are fast becoming, we're not the only city to deal with this. And the reason that is happening is because we've got a heroin problem of gigantic proportions. It's a national emergency, but I'm not even going to get into that either. Here's what it boils down to, okay? Every person in that home out there in that subdivision isn't from here. And chances are they're under a court order to be in some sort of program, which gives the people who run these facilities, the nonprofits or for-profits, a real big hedge, because if somebody complains about the living conditions or doesn't like the food or doesn't like something like that, they get booted out of the program and they go to prison. So you're not going to have a lot of complaints, but I'm here to offer you a solution. Now, I had one of these houses open up across the street from me. And next door to the property I had another house full of heroin addicts. Unfortunately, this house full of heroin addicts weren't in recovery, okay? The one across from me was in recovery. We didn't have much of a problem with that, but they eventually left because they got tired of me propositioning every new resident, but we won't get into that either. what it boils down to this: you're not going to be, no matter reasonable point of contact, making every effort to, reasonable exceptions, so forth, ain't going to satisfy the homeowners. They just want them out of there. It's going to be real difficult to do. However, I have a suggestion, and I'm making this just an overt suggestion. Okay? The homeowners in that subdivision need to ask themselves, would they rather have a house full of recovering heroin addicts or a house full of heroin addicts? That's basically the choice they have. Okay? Now, I can guarantee that if somebody rents a home out in the subdivision to a group of heroin addicts, the recovering heroin addicts will leave immediately, because the people that run it will see, hey, look, all of a sudden now my addicts have a place to get their drugs, and they're gone. And then you have to get rid of the using heroin addicts, which is also a problem because they tend to drop dead a lot, like off of Croton Road. But the point I want to make to you is this: we've got some heroin addicts here in the city that have been geographically relocated. We need to find, what we need to do is to come into an agreement with another city to exchange heroin addicts in recovery. Okay, now I'm serious. You laugh about this and you think about this, but here's the point.
All right,
here's the
wrap it
thing.
up, Mr. Ellerbrock.
Here's the thing. No matter what you do, you ain't going to make the neighbors happy as far as that goes. You're going to cover your backside, which is the job of the city attorney and all that, and I'm proud to see it, and it's going to work. But guess what? Until there's other efforts made, these homes and this issue is going to be popping up again and again. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back, and we are in discussion, so are we all in agreement that we're in the right direction based on Ms. Dolly's recommendations?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So
Very good, thank you. It will probably be February before you see it, because it's got to go through P&Z and everything else.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Ms. Dolly. All right, item number 19 is, discussion of council policies and procedures. Councilmember Lopez?
Yes, thank you. Basically, what I want to address today is the appointments of board members, volunteer, and council members to boards. I find that the last meeting we had, the process really wasn't democratic. It wasn't followed democratically. I felt that somehow some of the council members were boxed out of the process. What I mean by that is it was treated as a motion instead of being treated as an appointment. In other words, I find that it would be better for the city council or the chair, when there's an appointment for a board member, to open the process for appointments, nominations, in other words. Instead of somebody saying, I appoint, let's say, X person, and somebody taking it like it's a motion, so they would second it instead of saying that they're actually appointing someone. So it's still open for appointments. That means another council member can make another appointment. So we're not stuck on just that one person that there was a second motion for, because that's not the policy. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No.
If I could, if I can clarify.
Fine.
And I didn't know that this was going to be the issue, but if you follow Robert's Rules of Order, when there's an appointment to be made, there's a nomination.
Exactly.
And whatever nominations are to be made are first presented, and then you vote how you want to vote going down the line. It's not a motion to appoint so-and-so.
Exactly.
So Robert's Rules provides the vehicle on exactly what Councilmember Lopez is describing. When Robert's Rules is not followed during a meeting, the way you can handle that is to say point of order and say, I want to follow, Robert's Rules requires a nominating process. We need to follow that process.
Exactly.
Okay? So you don't really need to have a policy to address this. You have to point out that the process that Robert's Rules calls for is the nomination process that Councilmember Lopez is asking
Right.
for.
And the reason why I'm bringing it up is because after the meeting, someone said they wanted to nominate someone, but it went so quickly that they didn't have the opportunity to bring someone else up. Now, I wasn't against any of the nominations that were done. I approved them all. I didn't have a problem with it. I just felt that the policy or the process should be that the chair opens the nomination policy, and when all the nominations are done for that board, then the chair should say, nomination is closed, and then you vote. That's how I feel the policy should have been done the last meeting, and I want to see it like that from now on. Another thing I want to bring up is,
I think that's based on the chair prerogative.
on the nomination?
Yes.
That's not what I saw in the Robert Rules of Law. That seems like a process to me.
In the
If
event,
not, I think the city council should look into that and make a decision.
in the event that a different proceeding, this applies for any of the Roberts rules, in the event the rules are not followed and council makes the motion for appointment and it's seconded and voted on, because that was not, so a point of order was not brought to the attention of the chair before the first vote was cast, that's good. You get to go forward on that.
That's correct. I understand
So there's
that.
nothing wrong with what's happened to date. So going forward, though, in the event someone challenges the procedure with a point of order, then you would need to revert back to what Robert's rules are, unless you want to adopt a policy amending your procedure and say, we're not going to follow Robert's rules in this situation.
Well, that's what I want the city council to decide whether they want to follow the procedure of Robert's Rules of Law, which basically the council has been doing since the beginning, and accept that policy of nominations for city council appointments to boards. And another thing is that, and that's open for discussion, of course, is that I don't believe that just because someone has been on the board for, let's say, 2 or 3 times, we should automatically appoint them to continue on the board. I think it should be the same policy that you may nominate that person to continue, and someone else may nominate someone else. Again, the process of voting is what I would like to see in place. Make sure that nobody is boxed out of being able to nominate and also vote. And that's where I am. Finished my
Okay.
statement.
All right. Ms. Thomas?
This is, I guess, for Allison. My question is, from what I understand, when we have a nomination coming up, whether it be something has to do with city council sitting up here or whether it's nominating somebody else to one of our outside boards, the nomination process, it's on our agenda, showing that it's a nomination, which means anybody can throw a name out there at any time.
Right.
Plus, when it's a nomination, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, there does not need to be a second.
That's
Like
right.
a lot of times what happens up here is I would say I nominate Teresa Lopez for blah, 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 blah. And then Paul will go, well, I second that. But a second is not necessary. What would happen or occur in that situation is I would say, I nominate Teresa Lopez for this, and then Paul would speak up and say, well, I nominate Tim Thomas for this.
Exactly.
And that's how the process should go. But as soon as you see it on your agenda item that it's a nomination, anybody at any point can throw right
that's
out
right.
there that
I
it's a
agree.
nomination, and we do not need a second for it.
I agree. And I'm bringing this up for the new members because I think they're not aware of that procedure. They think, I could be wrong, that once you nominate and someone seconds, okay, vote, everything's gone.
Well, I guess we
And-
need to,
and that's
everybody
what I
needs
feel-
to read the rules.
Yes, but
Right, okay.
unfortunately,
But Okay.
I'm bringing it to the attention so no one is ever boxed out of the process. That's all I'm doing it for.
Mayor.
Yeah.
Okay,
Vice Mayor.
you're saying that for the new members, that means that there was the discussion, and then those new members can't speak for themselves? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it was brought to my attention that it went
Okay,
too
so they
fast.
should have brought it out themselves versus you being the spokesman for them.
Well,
I believe they can
I'm-
speak very well for
I'm sure
themselves.
they can, but I figured
Okay.
I'll bring it up.
They didn't say anything, so,
Like I said,
that's
it was
right.
brought to my attention, and I feel that it's only fair that I bring it up, only because they're not aware of the voting. They're not aware of the procedure, so if they bring something up, they're not aware of it. So I figured I'm knowledgeable in it, so let me bring it up.
All right. Okay. Eric, you're out of order. Okay, so this is strictly a discussion item?
A
Okay.
discussion
All
that
right.
from now on, for the chair, in order for it to be a process where everybody's included, just, to me, the wording should be open for nomination, and when it's finished, close for nomination, basically. Or your own wording to that effect.
It's up to the chair, so that's all I can say. And if you want to get versed in Robert's rules, read the book.
Well,
All
can
right,
I make a
so-
motion then?
All right, what's your motion?
My motion is that we follow the procedure in nominating council members on the process of the Robert Rules of Law.
All right, do I have a second?
Do we need
All
to
right.
do?
No, all right, so it died.
Well, actually, no, I think if we were talking about Robert's rules, I think we should follow Robert's rules. So I will second that, absolutely. And I think I can understand when you say it's the chair,
Yeah,
but we
it's
still
up
have
to the
Robert's
chair.
rules.
And that's right, we do, but
And,
read
and,
the
and I can
rules.
understand, I mean, we all have the ability to speak up and say, hey,
Yes.
this or that, but I would just ask that, hey, I kind of, she makes a point to, you know, if there's a nomination, let's just make sure everything's thrown in the hat. Just, that's fine, I have no problem. If she wants to make that motion, I'll second that motion, that we follow Robert's rules.
But to do, what are we, I mean, read about it or put it as far as a policy or what?
Oh, no,
mean,
that
I
we-
don't-
we-
I
She just-
motion, I'm sorry, let
Sorry, go
me
ahead, ma'am.
clarify my motion. I make the motion that we follow Robert's Rules of Law in the nomination process of the council members. In other words, on the nominating council board members and the volunteer board members for the city.
All right, we do.
That's not what happened the last time.
But I'm sorry, I mean,
It didn't
nobody
happen the
else
last
asked for a
time.
nomination, so.
Right. In other words, we have to make sure that nomination is open for everyone, and then advise everyone when the nomination is closed, and then the voting happens. That's
But
all.
it is.
But it didn't happen that way. Somebody seconded and poof,
right.
went right through.
I can't-
But they're not supposed to second it. It's not a motion, it's a nomination. You second a motion, you don't second a nomination. I mean, that's only,
Okay, so, Ms. Thomas.
I believe that we are following the rules, and I think that we are doing it in the way that we need to do it. I think what's happening here is maybe some members don't understand that at any given point, when you see the word nomination on your agenda, either your packet or on your computer or whatever you're using, when you see nomination, that means you can throw a name out there. Nomination means whether it's a name you're picking off of all the people here or whether it's a name that's off of council here. When it's a nomination, you can throw in any name you want to do that. And if you know that, there is no issue with this at all. So if going forward, I think we already do that. And if some people didn't understand that, I think now that that has been put out there and that is understood, that at any time there's a nomination, I mean, whoever the chair is at the time will read, this is a nomination for blah, 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 which is read, because it's read from right up top. And now we know it's a nomination. It's now up to you to throw out whatever name you want to throw out.
right.
And then at that point, the city clerk would then go down the way and say, if there was two people and keep a count on the two, and then we'd know who the person is.
I agree with you totally.
I
but
think
that's
that is
not
what occurs.
But that's not what happened the last time. I agree with you totally. That is the policy, but it didn't happen the last time. So I want to make sure that the nomination process is open, and then it's stated that it's closed. And let everyone know that they can nominate people, that it isn't just nominate her, second, and vote.
Well, nobody needs to say second, and I think that's what everybody here has to understand. And that when it says a nomination, feel free, as soon as I say I nominate whoever, then you can say, I would like to nominate whoever. Exactly. I mean, that's just, you know, I think that's the way it goes in nominations. We don't need somebody telling us exactly when or what or how to do it. We just automatically know that that is how it's done.
As long as that's the way it's done, I don't have a problem.
Okay, so Vice Mayor Minus.
Mayor, I'm really baffled. I do know that I am the topic of discussion. I have no problem with that. I have very strong shoulders. This is not the first time that we've done a nomination. We've done it before. We've done it several times. And Councilmember Lopez, when we doing the board positions, there were people that you nominated, and we went back and forth. So if that was an issue, then, you know, or if anyone was, well, and it was two who resented that I was nominated, then they should have spoke up. Or to make another nomination. So we're beating something that's totally we don't need to beat, because we do nominations every month.
Mayor?
Ms. Lopez.
I want to make it clear that it wasn't anything against you, because I even voted for you, so that wasn't it. Okay? As a matter of fact, I voted for everyone who made their appointments. I didn't have a problem with that. But when that was brought to my attention, I said, you know, you're right. I don't think all the council members know what the process is. Not the policy, the process. So I want to make sure that all the board members here know the process. And that's all I'm bringing up today. That's it, nothing more.
I think
We don't need a motion.
Mayor,
It's a great discussion.
It's a great discussion.
Councilmember Lopez is being a spokesman for the two council members who did not say anything. I believe that they are very capable to speak for themselves. If you know, that was an issue, it was 5-2. So if there was an issue, then, you know, they, you know, should have said something.
Mayor?
So, you
Mayor?
know, I think we just beat
It
a dead
appears,
horse.
it's just that it appears to me they did not know the procedure. And that's why I'm bringing it up. Because I want to make sure, well, they didn't speak up because there was a motion, second, and the voting happened.
Then their name
And
should
that's
have
what
been
the
down
problem
here
is.
instead of
They need
yours
to know that the nominations are open and when they're closed. That's it. I mean, I'm not asking for anything other than the correct wording to be used.
All right, Mr. Thomas.
Madam Mayor, if I can just say something, and I totally disagree with Ms. Minus's comment, because obviously if that happens, we're breaking sunshine laws if we're discussing this before a city council meeting. And I take objection to that extremely, and that's wrong. So again, she has a perception of what happened the last meeting. Perception is reality. It's well within her right to bring it up. We've discussed it, and so there you have it. But to falsely accuse two council members up here who have stellar reputations within the county and basically around the state that we're breaking sunshine laws by talking to Ms. Lopez, that's questionable judgment right there. And I
Mayor,
resent that.
Yeah, Vice Mayor.
Councilmember Lopez, and if we can hear it on the tape, said that they did not know the process. I don't believe she has a crystal ball to guess their minds. It had to be some kind of dialogue for to make this statement.
It was.
So it had to be a dialogue.
Mayor?
So that it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure
Mayor,
that out.
there was a dialogue, and it was right here, and they said how quickly that went. I don't understand. That was exactly the words that were used. How quickly? I don't understand. So then, I understood that that person did not understand what was going on.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yeah, Ms. Moore.
I appreciate Councilwoman Lopez's comments and on how we're going to do this. I would like to move on. I think this is getting to a point of where it's personal and I think we're able to.
Public comment.
We understand what we may have done in the past. We know what we're going to do in the
That's all I
future.
want.
And I would like to see this move on and address the item number 18.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Ms. Lopez, do you want to withdraw your motion?
I don't have a motion. He has a motion.
Well, no, you had the motion.
Oh, no,
I'll
I did.
second.
I'm sorry.
But I'll pull my second because I think I have to agree. We understand, we all
right.
understand the rule.
All I want is the policy to be followed. That's all.
Mr. Ellebrock, you had signed up for item number 19.
Yeah, they switched it, you guys switched it around. She brought it up.
All right,
She
so,
brought it up. She wanted it switched, try to prevent me speaking.
okay, I'm sorry. So what do you want to,
I want to make a comment. I want my 3 minutes.
okay, go ahead, sir.
This whole damn discussion is happening because we've got people who have never served on boards before. Okay, first of all, right off the bat, it's Robert's Rules of Order, not Robert's Rules of Law. So let's get that straight. Okay, second of all right, everything I know about Robert Rules of Order, coming as a veteran who's served over 5 years on various city boards and all that, I learned from the city boards. And while I was a member of this city board, I went to the thing about went to the hearing by Mr. Googleman, the class by Mr. Googleman, taught by members of the state that is offered to members of the board, defining sunshine laws and so forth and so on. But what we got here is if it ain't broke, let's not fix it. Come on, man. Let's get over this. We appoint board members, fine. Hell, Harry Good approved my board appointment. That winter like a lead balloon. But let me tell you, if it ain't broke, let's not fix it. This is not an issue here. We have been, and our city boards are important. These city boards save the city lots and lots of money, these volunteer boards, and they are a form of input, and we can go on and on about that. So let's not mess with the process.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ellebrock. Okay, so it was just a discussion item. Item number 18. Item number 18 is council action. This is coming from the clerk's office, appointment of a voting delegate and alternate voting delegate to the Space Coast League of Cities of 2018. So it's pretty basic what is in the package. So recommend that council appoint one voting delegate and one alternate voting delegate to the Space Coast League of Cities of 2018. Now, we have Councilmember Teresa Lopez serving as our delegate, and the alternate is Vice Mayor Minus. So, Council, what is your pleasure?
Mayor,
And Mr. Elfrey?
I would like to reappoint the two.
Second.
All right. So we have a reappointment of,
Second. Ma'am?
Obviously, I'm a slow learner. So I withdraw that second.
So with discussion here,
Yes,
just
discussion.
a point of discussion here. So this would be the point, just so everybody would understand, that if I decided I wanted somebody differently, I would
Yes.
now speak up and say.
Yes.
Right. We rehearsed this. That was the teaching. Yeah.
when did you rehearse this?
Got it.
All right.
Please don't say that.
Yeah, please don't. That's right. No, that's right.
Even a joke.
That was a joke, yeah.
Joke.
All right, so Mr. Elfrey has made,
Yes, ma'am.
all right, any other nominations? Somebody,
Then I'll make the motion of those two.
so they're gonna close the nominations?
Okay.
Bring it back and.
Roll call vote, you don't need a motion.
Thank you.
All right, so then I need a roll call. Aye or nay?
Councilmember Debbie Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Alfrey.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez. Councilmember Tim Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Minus.
Aye.
Mayor Meehan.
I vote aye. And congratulations, I assume you still want to be on the Space Coast.
Still want to be on, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
thank
the
you.
treasurer, yeah.
Oh,
After we voted you in.
all right, now we are on item number 20, petitions, remonstrances, and communications.
Do you need an alternate as well on
They
that?
voted for both of them.
For both of them?
Yeah.
Okay, I only
Mr.
heard
Elfrey.
one. Okay.
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so under item 20, Eric Ellebrock would like to be up here for 5 minutes. Okay.
At approximately 2:30 p.m. on Wednesday before last, at the on Croton Road between Parkway and Post, 2 West Melbourne police units, were parked at the entrance to the old gun range, which is now the soccer field. Their vehicles they were in uniform, their units were out, the vehicles were pointed out. They were out visibly with radar guns. Okay, they were out, and this is West Melbourne, is off of Croton Road running a speed trap. I would like the council member to ask our police chief to reach out to the chief of West Melbourne and find out what the hell two of his guys were doing pointing radar guns in the city of Melbourne. Excuse me, what the blazes.
Yes.
My apologies. What the blazes they were doing pointing radar guns in the city of Melbourne. Now, I have a thing called a work ethic, and I wasn't wearing my bulletproof vest. And by the way, these were two white officers. I don't know why I need to mention they were white officers, because West Melbourne doesn't have any black ones. The point I'm trying to make here is we need to find out what was going on. I know some people are going to doubt this, and if I would have had the camera handy, and I feel guilty. I feel guilty that I did not stop and go and confront them personally. And I have invested some money in some video stuff for the car. But we need to find out what was happening here.
Mr. Ellerbrecht, I'll have Mr. McNeese contact you and give you, after he, checks out with the chief on what's going on. All right, Ms.
Mayor.
Moore.
Eric, I didn't see the West Melbourne officers, but I saw a Cocoa officer pull over someone on the Melbourne side of the O'Galley Causeway, almost down to Pineapple Avenue. And that, today is Tuesday. This was on Friday.
Did you bring it to somebody's attention?
No.
All right. All right. All right.
Mayor.
No further discussion. We'll have Mr. McNeese look up and give us a report on that. All right, Vice Mayor.
Just to correct Mr. Ellerbrock, that I believe there is one or two African American police officers in West Melbourne.
That must be new.
So
Mr. Ellerbrock. Okay.
And if I may ask the city manager that we have an inter-city or cross-city
Interlocal.
boundaries where, they can come to, you can't just stop at Palm Bay Road or whatever, then they can come on across. But we have that agreement.
Yeah, interlocal agreements.
Yes. So is that,
Okay.
good in this case, sir?
You have mutual aid agreements with pretty much all the departments that we intersect, including the sheriff's office. I don't know nothing about speed guns on Croton Road, but I'll see what I can find out.
All right.
Mayor?
Yeah, Ms. Lopez.
January 1st, 2018, the Haitian community is celebrating Independence Day, and they requested from me a letter from the city of Melbourne, a congratulations letter, if that's possible. Can that be done?
Yes,
Great.
definitely.
Mayor, just,
Yeah, Vice Mayor Minus.
You done?
Am I going?
Done.
Oh,
okay.
sure, I'm sorry.
Mayor, this coming Thursday, December 14th, is the annual Melbourne Police Community Relations Council Christmas party. I'm playing it by ear on where I be there. However, I want to commend Miss Denise Carter for taking the helm, and she is coordinating and she is taking my place. I hope to try to show up, but right now I am just playing it by ear. But please come to Lipscomb Community Center for the annual Christmas party. I understand that, she's doing a bang-up job, so come in and enjoy yourselves.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yep, Mayor.
Mr. Elfrey.
Yeah, when we initially started regarding the approval of the minutes, I just want some clarification entered in the record regarding my agenda item last week. I received a phone call, and I just want to clarify that Attorney Kendall Moore is not the attorney of record for Honor America. He was not hired. I just want that on record for later reference. And also, I just feel, Attorney Kendall Moore is a very honorable and decent man, and I just would appreciate in the future we don't throw out names that someone that's supposedly hired when they're not. So that's just where I want it on record. Thank you,
Okay.
Mayor.
All right, thank you. I just want to make an announcement. We're going to do our second annual Health First Mayor's Challenge, and that's going to be the kickoff will be in February, but I'll get out the details for everybody, and then the sign-up, so I'll give you more on that.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah,
Just
Mr.
real quick.
Thomas.
Ma'am, obviously, we just had the Melbourne Light Parade, and Karen did a fantastic
Yes.
job.
Yep.
Now, we're a year out, and so we know what the cost of the parade is. And so what I'd recommend is each one of the folks that are up here on the council, maybe we're responsible for coming up with $2,500 as far as getting donations or talking to businesses about donating to the Light Parade. And then we start getting Karen up here, maybe starting March, every couple of months to give updates on where she's at on money. So we're not rushing the parade. We're going to have money for this parade, there's no doubt, but we need to make sure that, she's giving us an update on where we're at, and we're all out there trying to help her in coming up with the money. There's plenty of businesses that will donate that will help us. So if we each did 2,500, got donations of that much, that should cover the bill. So.
And,
All right.
and I will say, Mayor, I didn't ride with the council. I think you're aware of that, of the last parade.
Yes.
I didn't. My little girl said, "Dad, will you spend the evening with me at the parade?" So I had to ditch the council for my children.
Okay.
I apologize for that, but you know what? I'm sure everybody's parents and they understand.
Yes.
They're little now, and I think I'm the only council member with young kids. Everybody else is grown, so I'm gonna
Okay.
try to spend that valuable time with them. So nothing against the council, but my daughters overrode you.
All right, very good. All right, anything else? All right, so for the good of the order, I'll adjourn at 9:10.
Hey, have a happy Merry Christmas. Everybody have, and listen, I know we're over, but let's all continue to keep our prayers in for Miss Midas's daughter. And I mean that. Don't mean to put you on the spot, but that